Hey guys, tonight we're climbing into one of the most miserable jobs in medieval history, standing guard in a castle tower. You're picturing something romantic, aren't you? A noble sentinel gazing across moonlit battlements, maybe sharing bread with a fellow warrior while you swap tales of valor. Yeah, no. The reality is you're wedged into a freezing stone cylinder that smells like centuries of human misery. Your feet are going numb through your worn boots, and that bread you're imagining has got more mold than grain, and you'll be grateful for it. Here's the thing nobody tells you about medieval tower guard duty. It wasn't an honor. It was a punishment that just happened to be mandatory. You probably won't survive a full year of this posting without permanent damage to your body, your mind, or both. The cold alone could kill you. The stairs could cripple you. The boredom could drive you genuinely insane. And we haven't even talked about what happens when someone actually attacks. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I love seeing this community spread across the globe, all of us weird enough to find comfort in historical suffering. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive at your new posting on a gray March morning in, let's say, 1347. You're not a knight. Knights don't do this kind of grunt work. You're a man-at-arms, maybe a lesser nobleman's third son with no inheritance coming, or perhaps you're working off a debt to your lord. Either way, here you are, staring up at the southeast tower of a medium-sized castle somewhere in the English Midlands. It's called a guard tower, but that's a generous term for what's essentially a vertical stone prison where you'll spend the next several months slowly losing your health. The tower master, a grizzled veteran missing 2 fingers and most of his patience, barely looks at you as he explains the basics. You'll be on a rotation with 5 other guards. 4-hour watches, twice a day. Sounds manageable, right? 4 hours on, 8 hours off, do it again. But here's what he doesn't explain clearly, what you'll learn the hard way. Those 8 hours off aren't rest. You're still in the tower. You're still cold. You're still responsible for maintenance, for hauling water, for weapons upkeep. And you're definitely not sleeping 8 hours. You'll be lucky to string together 3 hours of uninterrupted sleep on any given day. The tower itself is about 60 feet tall, maybe 15 feet in diameter at the base. It's one of 4 corner towers on this castle's curtain wall, built about 80 years ago when Edward II was still pretending he could hold Scotland. The walls are limestone, 3 feet thick with narrow arrow slits, loopholes in proper terminology, though nobody calls them that, spaced every 8 feet in a spiral pattern as you ascend. Historians still argue whether this spiral arrangement was primarily defensive genius or just the natural result of staircase architecture. But standing here now, you don't really care about the academic debate. What you notice immediately is the cold. It's March, not even proper winter anymore, but the stone holds onto cold like a grudge. The tower has no heating system beyond what your own body provides, and maybe a small brazier on the top platform if you're lucky and the wind isn't too strong. That limestone that makes such excellent fortification, it's also a phenomenal thermal conductor, which means it sucks the heat right out of your body and offers nothing in return. You touch the wall for just a moment and your palm comes away aching. The ground floor of your new home is basically a storage room. Weapons that are too damaged for real use but not quite broken enough to throw away. Coils of rope that smell like mildew. A few barrels of something you're not sure what, and you learn quickly not to ask too many questions about the barrels. There's a wooden ladder leading up to a trapdoor in the ceiling. Not stairs yet. Those come later. The ladder is slippery with moisture and generations of hand grease. And you notice several of the rungs have been replaced at different times with wood that doesn't quite match. You climb. Your hands grip wood that's somehow damp and cold simultaneously. The trapdoor opens with a groan that echoes down through the stone, and you emerge into the second level. This is where guards actually spend their off-duty time, such as it is. There are straw pallets on the floor, 4 of them, which is interesting because you were told there are 6 guards in the rotation. Someone's doing math that doesn't add up, which means someone's always sleeping in someone else's still warm spot. There's a crude table made from planks laid across storage barrels. A few stools. One small window barely 8 inches wide that provides the only natural light. The smell hits you next. It's not quite sewage, not quite body odor, not quite rotting food. It's all of those things blended together and aged in stone for decades. You'll get used to it, your brain will eventually stop registering it, but right now it's making your eyes water. You notice the straw on the pallets is ancient, compressed to almost nothing, and definitely moving with some form of insect life. You've just met your roommates for the foreseeable future. Fleas, lice, and possibly bedbugs, though those tend to prefer warmer accommodations. One of your fellow guards, Thomas, you'll learn his name later, is attempting to sleep despite the fact that it's morning. He doesn't acknowledge your arrival. He's wrapped in a blanket that might have been wool once, but is now mostly a collection of holes held together by optimism and dried sweat. His face is pressed against the stone wall, which seems insane to you now, but which you'll understand eventually. The stone is so cold it actually numbs the skin, and sometimes numbness is preferable to the constant aching awareness of where you are and what you're doing. The Tower Master leads you up the spiral stairs. Here we go. This is the feature everyone thinks they understand about medieval towers, the spiral staircase going clockwise as you ascend. You've probably heard the explanation. It's designed so defenders coming down have their right arms, their sword arms, free to swing, while attackers coming up have their sword arms against the central column. Clever, right? Defensive architecture at its finest. That's all true. But here's what the history documentaries don't tell you. Those stairs are hell to live with. Each step is uneven. Not slightly uneven, dramatically, dangerously uneven. Medieval masons didn't have the tools or the standardization we take for granted. One step is 8 inches tall, the next is 11, the one after that is 6. Your feet never find a rhythm. You can't look up while you're climbing because you'll miss a step and break your ankle. You can't look down because the central column is so tight to your left side that you'll scrape your shoulder raw. You have to exist in this weird middle distance, feeling your way, counting steps you'll eventually memorize. There are 47 steps from the guard quarters to the top platform. You'll climb them at least 8 times per day every single day. That's 336 steps daily, which doesn't sound like much until you do it in chainmail, or carrying a bucket of water, or in complete darkness because your torch went out. The steps are worn smooth in the center from centuries of boots, which makes them slippery even when dry. When wet, from rain leaking through, from spilled water, from someone's chamber pot mishap, they become genuinely treacherous. You emerge onto the top platform and the wind hits you like a physical slap. You're 60 feet up now, higher than most of the surrounding buildings except the keep itself. The platform is circular, maybe 12 feet across, with crenellations, those tooth-shaped walls you think of when you picture castle battlements, running around the perimeter. The gaps between the merlins, called crenels, and yes, that's where the word crenellation comes from, are about 2 feet wide enough to shoot through, also wide enough for wind to scream through at velocities that make your eyes water. There's no roof. That's not an oversight, it's intentional. A roof would limit your visibility and your ability to rain down projectiles on attackers. But it means you're completely exposed to weather. Rain, snow, hail, wind, sun. All of it. All the time. There's a small wooden shelter built against one section of the parapet, barely large enough for 2 men to crowd into, but it's not real protection. It's more of a psychological comfort, a place to press yourself against when the weather turns truly vicious. The view, you have to admit, is spectacular. You can see for miles across the March countryside. Fields being plowed for spring planting, the village clustered around the castle's outer walls, the road winding away toward the next manor. On a clear day, you could spot an approaching army hours before it arrived, which is theoretically the entire point of your job. But here's the cruel irony. Most days aren't clear. Most days are the kind of English overcast where visibility drops to maybe a quarter mile, and you're just standing here going slowly numb for no particular reason. Your watch begins. The guard you're relieving, Peter, he grunts his name without enthusiasm, gives you the briefest possible report. Nothing happened. Nothing's happening. Nothing will happen. He's been saying this same sentence for 3 years, and the monotony has carved grooves into his face deeper than the stone stairs. He shows you the bell, a cast bronze thing hanging from a wooden frame, which you're supposed to ring if you spot danger. He shows you the spear rack, the barrel of crossbow bolts, slightly damp, of course, and the signal flags you're supposed to use to communicate with the other towers. Then he leaves and you're alone. For hours stretches out before you like a prison sentence. You're supposed to walk the circuit of the platform, checking all directions, maintaining alertness. So you walk. The platform is 12 feet across, maybe 40 feet in circumference. At a slow pace, one circuit takes about 30 seconds. That means you'll walk this same circle 480 times during your watch. Your mind does the math involuntarily. For 180 times of seeing the same stones, the same scratch marks in the Merlin where someone carved their initials decades ago, the same rusty stain where the rain runs off the bell. The cold works its way into you systematically. First your fingers, even though it's not quite freezing. The wind at this height is constant, and wind chill is a concept that won't be scientifically explained for another 600 years, but your body understands it perfectly. Your fingers go numb first, that painful tingling numbness where you can't quite make a fist. Then your toes, despite the fact that you're walking constantly. The leather of your boots is thin, good boots are expensive, and you're not important enough for good boots. The cold comes up through the soles like it's being actively pumped into your feet. Your nose starts running. Your eyes water from the wind. You develop a cough that you'll keep for the entire duration of your posting, that chronic tower guard cough that comes from breathing cold, damp air 16 hours a day. The other guards have it too. It's like a membership badge. You'll lie on your pallet during your off hours, listening to 5 other men cough in slightly different rhythms. A symphony of respiratory distress. An hour passes. Nothing happens. The village goes about its business. Smoke rises from cook fires. Someone's leading an ox cart along the road. Thrilling stuff. You're already bored in a way you didn't know was possible. This isn't the boredom of waiting for something to happen. This is the boredom of knowing nothing will happen, combined with the physical discomfort of being cold and exposed, seasoned with the knowledge that you can't leave, can't sit down properly, can't do anything except keep walking your circle. You try to distract yourself. You count the stones in the opposite tower. You watch a crow fight with a magpie over something dead in the field. You wonder what your family is doing, whether your brother got that inheritance issue sorted out, whether the girl from the village. But no, that's a dangerous line of thought. That way lies madness, or at least profound depression. Better to keep your mind in the present, in this stone circle, in this moment. The second hour is worse than the first. Your body has moved past the initial shock of cold and into a deeper, more concerning numbness. Your legs ache from the constant walking. There's nowhere to sit except the stone floor, and sitting during watch duty is technically forbidden, though you notice there's one spot where the stone is worn smoother than elsewhere, like generations of guards have been secretly sitting in exactly that place. You file that information away for future desperate times. You're not supposed to eat during your watch, but there's a piece of bread in your pouch, your breakfast, saved from this morning, and you gnaw on it while you walk. It's hard enough to crack teeth. The grain was probably fine when it was baked 3 days ago, but it's been absorbing moisture from the tower atmosphere since then, creating this weird texture that's somehow both stale and soggy. There are definitely spots of mold, little green and white colonies, but you eat around them when possible and straight through them when not. Wasting food isn't an option. You're not starving exactly, but you're perpetually hungry in that way that becomes your baseline normal. 3 hours in, you've achieved a kind of Zen state. Not peace, nothing about this is peaceful, but a mental blankness where time stops meaning much. You're walking, you're cold, you're bored. These 3 facts are your entire universe. You've stopped checking the sun's position, stopped counting circuits. You're just existing in an eternal present tense of discomfort. Then you see it. Movement on the road. Your heart rate spikes. Finally, something. And you move to the northern crenel, squinting into the distance. It's a merchant's cart. Just a merchant's cart. 2 men, some barrels, a donkey. They'll pass by in 20 minutes and your excitement will evaporate back into the gray monotony. But for now, for these few minutes, you have something to watch. You study them like they're the most fascinating thing in the world. You try to guess what they're carrying. You imagine their conversation. You're so starved for stimulation that 2 strangers on a donkey cart become the highlight of your entire day. The 4th hour finds you back in that blank state, but now with the added joy of anticipation. Your relief is coming. Thomas will climb those stairs, grunt at you, take his position, and you'll get to descend back into the tower. Not to comfort, there's no comfort in this posting, but at least to being slightly less exposed. You'll have duties, sure. There's always something that needs doing. But you won't be standing in the wind. That alone feels like luxury from where you're standing now. When Thomas finally appears, you give him the same report Peter gave you. Nothing happened. Nothing's happening. Nothing will happen. The words taste like surrender in your mouth, but they're true. You descend the spiral stairs, your knees wobbling slightly from 4 hours of constant standing, and emerge into the guard quarters. The smell that disgusted you this morning now barely registers. You've already adapted. That's what humans do. We adapt to hell and call it normal. You have 8 hours before your next watch. 8 hours to eat something, maybe sleep, maintain your equipment, and exist in this stone cylinder with 5 other men who are all slowly going as crazy as you are. Welcome to tower guard duty. You've completed 1 watch. Historians estimate the average posting lasted 6 months. That's 360 more watches to go. The odds you'll complete them without serious injury or illness are, according to castle records from the period, considerably less than 50%. But hey, at least you're not a peasant working the fields, right? At least you've got a prestigious military position. At least you're serving your lord with honor. These are the lies you'll tell yourself to get through the next watch, and the one after that, and the one after that. The stairs. Let's talk about the stairs. Because if the cold and boredom don't break you first, these 47 steps of medieval engineering definitely will. You're lying on your pallet during your off hours, trying to ignore the fact that it's damp and the straw is somehow both scratchy and slimy. When you hear the bell. Not the alarm bell, the mess bell, which means it's time to collect your meal from the kitchen, which is in the keep, which means descending your tower, crossing the bailey, climbing up into the keep, then reversing the entire journey with a bowl of lukewarm pottage that you'll somehow need to not spill. You sit up, and your knees immediately protest. It's been 3 days since you arrived, and you've already developed what the other guards call tower knees. A chronic ache in the joints from the constant up and down, the uneven steps, the spiral motion that puts torque on your kneecaps in ways the human body wasn't designed to handle. Thomas, who's been here 18 months, walks with a permanent limp. He told you yesterday it's from missing a step in the dark last winter and hyperextending something. He didn't see a physician. There's no physician for tower guards, so he just wrapped it with old cloth and kept climbing. Now it clicks audibly with every 3rd step. You start down the spiral. In daylight, with no load to carry, this should be simple. But your body is already learning to hate this motion. The clockwise descent means your left leg is always reaching farther than your right, always taking the longer step around the curve. Your right leg does the stabilizing, catching your weight on that uneven stone. Left, right, but never in a rhythm because the steps refuse to cooperate. 8 inches, then 6, then 10, then 7. Your brain can't predict it, so your muscles stay tense, always anticipating the wrong height. Step 17 has a crack. You've memorized this already because yesterday you caught your toe in it and nearly pitched forward. That would have been bad. Tumbling down a spiral stone staircase is a quick way to break most of your bones simultaneously. There are dark stains on some of the lower steps that everyone says are from spilled wine, but you're starting to suspect they're from the guards who didn't catch themselves in time. The central column is your constant companion, always there on your left as you descend. It's called the newel, though nobody uses that term except maybe the castle's architect, if he's even still alive. It's about 2 feet in diameter, limestone like everything else, and worn smooth by literally thousands of hands sliding along it for guidance. Your left shoulder brushes it constantly. By the end of your first week, you'll have a raw patch there that never quite heals because you're always rubbing it in the exact same spot. Ground level. You cross to the door, which is deliberately small, only about 5.5 feet tall. You have to duck, and this isn't an accident either. It's defensive architecture again. An attacker who somehow made it into your tower has to slow down and lower their head to exit, making them vulnerable. It's brilliant tactical design and absolutely infuriating to live with when you're making this trip 8 times a day. You've already cracked your head on the lintel twice. There's a smooth spot on the stone there too, polished by generations of guard scalps. Outside, the bailey is bustling with mid-morning activity. The armorer is working his bellows, sending sparks drifting across the courtyard. Someone's yelling about a pig that's gotten loose. Normal castle life, the kind you're no longer really part of. Your tower folk now, slightly separate, vaguely pitted. You catch a glimpse of yourself reflected in a water trough and understand why. You look exhausted and you've only been here 3 days. The keep is on the opposite side of the bailey, which means navigating around the chapel, past the stables, through a section where they're repairing the cobblestones and everything's mud. Your boots, already not great, are now caked in a mixture of mud, horse manure, and what you desperately hope is just regular mud. You'll be tracking this up your tower stairs, adding to the slickness that makes them so dangerous. The keep has proper stairs, wide, even, well-lit stairs that make you want to weep with gratitude. You can take them 2 at a time if you want. You can look up while climbing and not fear death. You can walk next to someone and have a conversation. These are the stairs that knights and nobles use, the stairs that the Lord's family walks daily. The contrast with your spiral nightmare makes you understand, viscerally, exactly where you rank in the castle hierarchy. The kitchen is chaos. There's always chaos. 3 hearths going constantly, servants rushing everywhere. The head cook screaming at someone about burnt bread. You get in line with the other low-ranking garrison members, regular soldiers, stable hands, the men-at-arms who guard the gate. The tower guards are easy to spot. You've all got that same cough, the same dark circles under your eyes, the same raw spot on your left shoulder. You're a fraternity of the miserable. Your pottage comes in a wooden bowl that's been used by hundreds of people and never properly cleaned by anyone's standards. The pottage itself is, well, it's food. Oats, some kind of vegetable that might be turnip, and possibly meat, though you'd need a better light to confirm. It's been sitting in a cauldron since dawn, developing that thick skin on top that you have to break through to get to the liquid underneath. Seasoned with salt and optimism. You also get a hunk of bread, the same rock-hard stuff from yesterday, and a cup of small beer, which is what everyone drinks because the water will kill you faster than the tower duty will. Now comes the fun part, getting it all back. Bowl in one hand, bread tucked under your arm, beer cup in the other hand. You've got to cross the Bailey again, through the mud and chaos, without spilling. The other guards make it look easy, but they've had practice. You're 3 steps out of the keep when someone's loose pig makes a break for freedom directly across your path. You pivot, the pottage sloshes, and you lose maybe a quarter of your meal to the cobblestones. The pig, adding insult to injury, immediately eats what you spilled. Back at your tower, you face the door. 5.5 feet tall, remember? You're holding a bowl and a cup, so you can't use your hands to steady yourself as you duck. You've got to sort of crouch walk through, which would be comical if it weren't so degrading. You make it, but more pottage sloshes out. You're down to maybe half a meal now, and you haven't even started climbing the ladder to the second level, with your hands full. This is a puzzle that never gets easier. You end up putting the cup on a storage barrel, tucking the bowl into your elbow, and climbing one-handed while clutching the bread in your teeth like some kind of deranged rat. You make it up, retrieve your cup via a careful balancing act, and finally arrive at the guard quarters. 4 of your fellow guards are here, in various states of rest and misery. Peter is attempting to sew up a tear in his gambeson with thread that's too thick and a needle that's too dull. Thomas is asleep despite the noise, that gift of the chronically exhausted. Marcus, you learned his name yesterday, is sharpening a knife on a whetstone with the kind of focus that suggests he's trying very hard not to think about where he is. And there's William, the oldest of the group at maybe 40, which makes him ancient by tower guard standards. You eat standing up because sitting down means you might not want to get back up. The pottage is lukewarm and gritty, but it's calories, and you need calories for the constant stair climbing. The bread requires genuine violence to eat. You have to soak it in the pottage until it softens enough to chew without dental injury. The beer is thin and slightly sour, but it's wet and you're always thirsty up here. The air is so dry and cold that you're constantly dehydrated without really noticing. Get used to losing half your meal on the trip, William says without looking up. He's carving something from a piece of wood, possibly a spoon. I started bringing up extra bread during my watch, keeping it in my pouch. Tower Master doesn't like it, says it attracts rats. But the rats are already here, so what's the difference? He's right about the rats. You've heard them in the walls, skittering through spaces you didn't know existed. Medieval castles are riddled with passages and gaps, places where the mortar has failed or the stone has settled, and rats navigate these highways like they own the place, which, in a very real sense, they do. You're the visitor in their stone maze. You finish eating and face the reality of your situation. You've got maybe 2 hours before your next watch, and you should sleep. But the stairs to the sleeping quarters are right there, 12 steps up to a 3rd level you haven't seen yet. Everything is vertical in this tower. Storage on the ground floor, living on the 2nd floor, sleeping on the 3rd floor, watching on the 4th. It's like someone designed it specifically to maximize the number of stairs you'd have to climb while carrying things or feeling sick or bleeding from some accident. Up you go. 12 more steps, same spiral, same uneven spacing. The sleeping quarters are marginally more private than the main room, which is to say there's a partial wall dividing it. 3 pallets here, so combined with the 4 downstairs, that makes 7 sleeping spaces for 6 guards. The math still doesn't work out, and you're starting to realize it never will. Someone's always sharing, always sleeping in someone else's warm spot, always breathing someone else's air. You collapse onto the nearest pallet and immediately understand why Thomas sleeps with his face pressed to the stone wall. The cold is actually preferable to the smell, to the itching, to the awareness. You can numb the cold. You can't numb consciousness. Your body is exhausted, but your mind is spinning, thinking about the next watch in 2 hours, about the 1,400 more watches ahead of you, about what your life has become. Sleep comes anyway because your body overrides your mind. But it's not good sleep. It's the shallow, anxious sleep of someone who knows they'll be woken up too soon. You dream about stairs, endlessly spiraling, each step a different height. You dream about climbing with bowls full of liquid that never spills but never reaches the top either. Anxiety dreams wearing the thinnest disguise. Thomas shakes you awake. "Your watch," he grunts. You have no idea if 2 hours have passed or 20 minutes. Time does weird things in the tower. You sit up, every muscle protesting, and face the reality again. 47 steps up to the top platform. Right now, in the gathering dusk, without full darkness yet, but close enough that you'll need to be careful. The descent from sleeping quarters to guard quarters is 12 steps that you can barely see. Someone's brought up a rushlight, a poor person's candle, basically a reed soaked in fat that burns with a weak, smoky flame, but it doesn't provide much illumination. It mostly just creates dancing shadows that make the steps harder to judge. You go slow, hand on the newel, feeling your way. 47 steps up to the watch platform. You've done this climb maybe 30 times in 3 days, and your body is rebelling. Your knees click with every step now, joining Thomas in the symphony of joint deterioration. Your left shoulder, where it brushes the newel, has definitely developed an open sore. You can feel it burning through your tunic. Your calves are permanently tight, muscles that never fully relax because they're always preparing for the next uneven step. The spiral direction, clockwise ascending, was designed by some 12th century genius to give defenders the advantage. Your right arm, your sword arm, has full range of motion as you climb. An attacker coming up faces the newel on their right side, limiting their swing. It's beautiful tactical thinking. The problem is you're not fighting anyone. You're just living here, and that clockwise spiral means something else entirely for daily life. Your inner ear hates it. Humans aren't designed for constant circular motion in one direction. After 3 days of spiraling clockwise, your balance is subtly off. You find yourself leaning slightly to the left even when you're on flat ground. Some guards who've been here for years have developed a permanent lean, their spines curved from months of compensating. Historians still argue whether this was an intentional defensive feature, making guards ineffective if they tried to attack down the stairs, or just an unfortunate side effect. But standing here at step 33, trying not to throw up from dizziness, you really don't care about the academic debate. Step 40. You're nearly there. Your breathing is labored not from exertion, it's not that far, but from the constant low-grade anxiety of navigating these death traps. Every step could be the one where you slip. Every step could be the one where your boot finds that crack or that smooth spot or that place where some moisture has made the stone into ice. Step 47. You emerge onto the platform into the slap of evening wind. The temperature has dropped 10 degrees since this morning, and the sun is a red smear on the western horizon. You're taking over from Marcus, who looks like he's aged a decade during his watch. His lips are actually blue. "Cold one tonight," he says, which might be the understatement of the century. "Wind from the north. Watch the rope on the bell. It's frozen stiff. If you need to ring it, you'll have to hit the bell directly with something." Then he's gone, descending into the relative warmth of the tower, and you're alone with the wind and the darkening sky and the knowledge that you'll be here for 4 hours. 4 hours in temperatures that are now definitely below freezing. 4 hours watching absolutely nothing happen while your body slowly turns into a popsicle in armor. You start your circuit, 40 feet around over and over, but now, in the gathering darkness, even this simple task becomes treacherous. The platform isn't perfectly level, water has to drain somewhere, so there's a slight slope toward the crenels. In dry conditions, no problem, but there's ice forming now, thin sheets of it that catch what little light remains and gleam like glass. Your boots, already worn smooth, have almost no traction. Your shuffle-walking feet never fully leaving the stone, because a full step might be a slide. This is how guards die, you realize. Not in glorious combat. Not defending against invaders. They slip on ice on their own tower platform and tumble 60 feet to the bailey below. You imagine it sometimes during the long dark hours, the sudden loss of traction, the moment of weightlessness, the very brief period of understanding what's about to happen before the impact. The castle records, the ones the tower master showed you very briefly on your first day, list cause of death for guards. Fell from tower appears with depressing regularity. More than died in battle. More than illness. Just fell. So you shuffle. You walk your circuits with your hand always on the parapet, always touching stone, always grounded. The wind tries to push you toward the crenels, those 2-foot gaps that offer a straight shot to death. You lean into the wind, countering it, but the wind isn't consistent. It gusts and drops, gusts and drops. Every drop makes you stagger forward, toward the edge. Your heart hammers every time. 2 hours in full darkness has fallen. There's a moon, at least 3/4 full and bright enough to cast shadows. This should be comforting, but somehow it's worse. The shadows move wrong on the spiral stairs below you. Every shift of cloud cover changes what you can see, creating phantom movements in your peripheral vision. Your mind, desperate for stimulation, starts populating the darkness with threats that aren't there. This is when you understand what William meant yesterday when he muttered something about tower madness. It's not dramatic. It's not like going berserk or having visions. It's subtler. It's your brain, starved for input, deprived of sleep, half frozen and wholly bored, starting to make things up. You see movement in the village that's just shadows. You hear sounds in the tower below that are just the stones settling, just the wind in the arrow loops, just rats in the walls. But for a moment, for several moments, you're convinced there's someone on the stairs, someone approaching, an enemy or a ghost or something worse. You grip your spear, the one actual weapon you're trusted with up here, and face the trapdoor that leads down to the stairs. Nothing emerges, because nothing was ever there. You realize you're breathing hard, adrenaline flooding your system for no reason. This is how it works. This is how the tower breaks you down. Not through any single trauma, but through 10,000 tiny moments of stress that never quite resolve. For hours, Marcus comes to relieve you. You descend those 47 steps in darkness, shuffle walking, hand on the newel, praying to saints you don't really believe in that you won't be the next entry in the fell from tower column. You make it, always a small miracle. You emerge into the guard quarters, where the rushlight is still burning, where for other men are dealing with their own versions of this same slow nightmare. Tomorrow you'll do it again. For hours up top, 8 hours in the tower, for hours up top again. Climbing and descending, spiraling clockwise until your inner ear gives up, until your knees give out, until your mind gives in. The stairs are killing you inch by inch, step by step. 47 steps, twice the climb per day minimum. That's over 800 steps daily, every one of them uneven, every one of them dangerous. Welcome to day 4. Only 176 more days to go in your 6-month posting. Your knees are already clicking. Your shoulders already raw. Your sense of balance is already compromised. But hey, at least you've got that prestigious military position, right? At least you're not working the fields. These are the lies that get you through the next climb. And the next. And the next. Week 2 arrives with the kind of weather that makes you understand why medieval people were so obsessed with the apocalypse. The sky opens up on a Tuesday morning, you think it's Tuesday, time has started blurring, and doesn't close again for 3 days straight. This isn't a gentle rain. This isn't a passing shower. This is the kind of downpour that medieval chroniclers would describe as God's displeasure made manifest, and standing on your exposed tower platform, you're inclined to agree with their theological assessment. You're on watch when it starts. One moment you're dealing with ordinary misery, cold, bored, counting the same stones for the thousandth time, and the next moment the heavens just dump water on you like someone overturned a celestial bucket. Within 30 seconds, you're soaked through every layer. Your wool tunic, which is supposed to retain some warmth even when wet, becomes a cold compress against your skin. Your leather jerkin turns into a heavy, clammy second skin. Your boots fill with water that squelches with every step. The wind drives the rain horizontal. It doesn't fall down. It attacks from the side, from every direction simultaneously, finding its way through the crenels under your hood, into your eyes and nose and mouth. You're not just wet, you're drowning while standing upright. You turn your back to the wind, press yourself against the merlin, and try to create some kind of shelter with your body. It doesn't work. The rain finds you anyway. Your visibility drops to maybe 50 feet. The entire point of tower guard duty, spotting threats from a distance, becomes impossible. You couldn't see an invading army if it was in the bailey. You definitely can't see the road, the village, the other towers. You're standing watch over nothing in particular while slowly developing hypothermia for no practical purpose. The platform has that slight drainage slope, remember? Very clever in theory. Water runs off through small holes in the floor, keeping the platform from flooding. In practice, those drainage holes are too small and too few. Water pools in low spots, creating puddles 6 inches deep. The ice from last night melts into slush that's somehow more treacherous than solid ice. You're walking your circuits through ankle-deep water, and each step sends freezing liquid pouring over the tops of your boots. Your hands stop working properly about an hour in. Not dramatically, you don't collapse or drop anything, they just gradually stop responding to commands. You try to make a fist and your fingers curl in slow motion, incompletely. You try to grip your spear and you're not entirely sure if you're actually holding it or if it's just wedged between unfeeling appendages. This is the early stage of what won't be medically understood for centuries. Your core temperature is dropping, your body is prioritizing vital organs, and your extremities are being sacrificed. 2 hours into the storm, you're shivering so hard that your teeth are chattering audibly. This isn't the casual shivering of being chilly. This is violent, uncontrollable muscle spasms as your body tries desperately to generate heat. It's exhausting. The shivering burns calories you don't have, energy you can't spare. You lean against the parapet and shake like you're having a seizure, and there's nothing you can do about it. The rain finds every flaw in the tower's construction. Water streams down the interior walls of the stairwell, making those already dangerous steps into a waterslide of death. It drips through the arrow slits, creating little waterfalls inside the guard quarters. It seeps through joints in the stone that you didn't know existed, appearing magically on interior walls that should be protected. Medieval masonry is impressive, but it's not waterproof. Nothing is waterproof. Water finds a way. Your relief comes up the stairs looking like he emerged from a river. Thomas is soaked, miserable, and clearly considering whether desertion and execution might be preferable to another day of this. He doesn't speak. What is there to say? Just takes his position while you begin the descent. Those wet stairs, those slippery, uneven, now literally streaming with water steps that spiral down into the darkness below. You go slowly, painfully slowly, each foot placed with deliberate care because one slip will send you tumbling. Your wet boots have zero traction on wet stone. It's like walking on ice, except ice is at least predictable. This is slick stone with irregular steps and no light and water running down it in rivulets that change course constantly. Your left hand is on the newel, gripping it so hard that when you finally reach the bottom, you'll have to consciously tell your fingers to release. Your right hand is on the outer wall, finding any crack, any imperfection that might provide grip. Step 17, the one with the crack. Your foot finds it, and for one heart-stopping moment your boot catches and you pitch forward. Your hand on the newel saves you, wrenching your shoulder, but you don't fall. You don't become another entry in the fell from tower statistics. You hang there for a moment, breathing hard, before continuing down. The guard quarters is a disaster. Water is dripping from 3 different places in the ceiling. The pallets are wet. Not damp, wet, soaked through with water that's been seeping down from the levels above. There's no dry place to sit. There's no dry place to lie down. The 6 guards not on watch are all awake, all huddled in their wet clothes, all shivering. The rushlight has gone out. Too much moisture in the air. So you're sitting in darkness broken only by whatever light makes it through the narrow window. This is day 1, Peter says from the darkness. Storm like this usually lasts 3 days, sometimes a week. Your brain does the math. 3 days. 18 watches in 3 days. 18 4-hour periods of standing in driving rain on an exposed platform while your body temperature drops degree by degree. 18 descents down those death trap stairs. And between watches, no chance to dry out, no warm place to recover. Just sitting here in wet clothes in a wet tower waiting for the next shift. We lost 2 guards to fever last spring during the rains. Marcus adds, and you're not sure if this is meant to be encouraging or just a statement of fact. Tower Master didn't replace them for a month. We were doing 6-hour watches instead of 4. William is attempting to wring out his tunic, which is optimistic bordering on delusional. You can squeeze water out of wool. Sure, but it's immediately replaced by more water dripping from above, seeping from the walls, condensing from your own breath in the cold air. The tower is wet. Everything in it is wet. You are wet. These are simply facts of existence now. You need to eat. Your meal from this morning is sitting on the crude table, a bowl of pottage that is now half water from the drips. You eat it anyway. It's cold, diluted, possibly the most depressing thing you've ever put in your mouth, but it's calories. Your shivering body is burning through energy at an alarming rate. If you don't eat, you'll be even colder on your next watch. Sleep is impossible. You lie on your wet pallet in your wet clothes, shivering too hard to relax, listening to the rain hammer on the tower roof 60 feet above. No, wait, there is no roof. The rain is hammering directly onto the watch platform, then finding its way down through the structure, dripping and seeping and generally making your life a medieval hell. You close your eyes anyway, because what else are you going to do? Time passes. Maybe you sleep for a few minutes, maybe you just exist in a shivering limbo. Then it's time for your next watch. Up those stairs again, now slicker than before because the rain hasn't stopped and won't stop. 47 steps of concentrated terror, each one a potential ending. You make it to the top and emerge into summer? No, not summer. Hell, it's the afternoon of day 2, and the rain has finally stopped. But now the sun is out. The sun that you've been craving for 2 weeks, the warmth you've been desperate for. Except now you're soaked to the bone and wearing metal. Chain mail specifically. And metal in direct sunlight after a rainstorm becomes a very efficient oven. Within 20 minutes you go from hypothermic to overheating. Your wet clothes, instead of cooling you through evaporation, trap heat against your skin. The metal of your mail absorbs sunlight and radiates it inward. You're being cooked and steamed simultaneously. You start sweating, which seems impossible given how cold you were an hour ago. But the human body is nothing if not creative in finding new ways to be miserable. You strip off your mail. This is technically against regulations, you're supposed to be armored on watch, but you will literally pass out if you don't. The mail comes off in a sodden heap, probably 30 pounds of wet metal and leather padding. Underneath, your tunic is plastered to your skin. You want to take that off too, but you can't be completely unarmored, so you suffer. The platform is steaming, literally steaming as the rainwater evaporates from sun-heated stone. It's like standing in a sauna built on top of a tower. Sweat pours down your face, stings your eyes, soaks through your already wet clothes. You drink from your water skin. You remembered to fill it this morning? Thank God. And the warm, slightly stale water tastes like salvation. This is when you spot the storm clouds building to the west. Your heart sinks. Not again. Not already. But nature doesn't care about your feelings or your dry clothes or your brief moment of warmth. Within an hour, the sky darkens again. Within 2 hours, the rain returns. You scramble back into your mail because you have to, regulations or not, and within minutes you're back to being a frozen, miserable guard standing watch over nothing in the rain. Day 3 of the storm brings a new horror. Lightning. You've seen lightning before, obviously. Everyone has. But you've never been the tallest metal object in a several-mile radius during a thunderstorm. You are now the lightning rod. Literally. You and your metal armor and your metal spear on top of a stone tower are the most attractive target for electricity in the entire valley. The first strike hits the northwest tower. You see it happen. A blinding flash, a crack of thunder so loud it's a physical impact, and every hair on your body stands on end from the electromagnetic pulse. The guard on that tower, you don't know his name, screams. You can hear him even over the storm. Whether he's hurt or just terrified, you can't tell. But he doesn't stop screaming for a full minute. You drop your spear. Just drop it. Let it clatter to the stone platform. You're not holding a metal lightning rod during a thunderstorm. That's where you draw the line between duty and suicide. If an enemy attacks during lightning, whether they deserve to win, they're clearly more dedicated than you are. The storm rages for 6 more hours. Lightning strikes somewhere in the castle complex 4 more times. Once on the keep, you see tiles explode from the roof. Once on a tree in the bailey, it splits with a crack like the world breaking in half. The other 2 strikes, you just feel that electric charge in the air, that sense that you're seconds away from being vaporized. You press yourself into the wooden shelter, making yourself as small as possible, praying to saints and angels and anyone else who might be listening that the lightning will find literally any other target. The rain is coming sideways again. You can't see anything. You couldn't defend the castle if you tried. You're just a terrified man in wet armor waiting to be electrocuted. Your relief comes up the stairs 2 hours late. The tower master, apparently, decided that asking guards to switch positions during active lightning strikes was a bad idea. So you stand there for 6 hours instead of 4, gradually losing the ability to feel your feet, watching lightning crack the sky, wondering which strike will be the one that finds you. When you finally descend, your legs buckle on step 12. Just give out completely, muscles cramped from 6 hours of tension. You catch yourself on the newel, barely, avoiding a tumble that would have broken something important. You make it to the guard quarters and collapse on your wet pallet without even attempting to remove your wet clothes or wet armor. You're beyond caring. You're beyond discomfort. You've achieved a state of misery so complete that additional suffering barely registers. Day 4 brings sun. Real sun, constant sun, warm sun. The tower slowly starts to dry out. You hang your clothes and blanket over the window opening to catch the breeze. Everything smells like mildew and standing water. The smell will never fully leave the tower. Decades from now, centuries from now, this tower will still smell faintly of the storm of 1347 that nearly killed 6 guards through exposure. But summer arrives in June, and summer brings different problems. You've been in the tower for 3 months now, and you've learned that medieval weather doesn't do comfortable. It does freezing or boiling with no middle ground. The June heat turns your tower into a vertical oven. Stone that trapped cold in the winter now traps heat. The top platform, exposed to direct sunlight for 16 hours a day, becomes hot enough to cook on. You've seen other guards fry an egg on the stone just to prove it's possible. Your armor becomes unbearable. Chainmail is insulation, good in winter, catastrophic in summer. Wearing it in June sun is like wrapping yourself in a blanket and standing in front of a furnace. You sweat through your padding in the first hour of your watch. By hour 2, you're dizzy. By hour 3, you're seeing spots. By hour 4, when your relief arrives, you're on the verge of heat stroke. The water situation becomes critical. You need to drink constantly, but water has to be carried up. 47 steps, carrying a bucket of water, in heat that makes the stairwell feel like a chimney. The water itself is suspect, drawn from the castle well, which everyone knows isn't entirely clean, but what's the alternative? You drink it, you get sick, you keep drinking it because thirst will kill you faster than whatever's in the water. Historians still argue whether more medieval soldiers died from combat or from just being medieval soldiers. Disease, exposure, accidents, the slow grinding away of health that came from living in these conditions. Standing here in week 12, rotating between hypothermia and heat stroke, watching your body deteriorate from the constant stress, you understand that it's not even close. Combat would be a mercy. Combat would be brief. This is just slow death by weather and architecture. A storm rolls in that night. Summer thunder, violent and brief. You're on watch when it hits. The temperature drops 20 degrees in 10 minutes. Rain comes down like divine punishment. Lightning turns the world white. And you're standing on top of the highest point around, metal armor, metal spear, making peace with whatever comes next. The lightning doesn't find you. Not tonight. But there's always tomorrow. And the day after. And the 1400 watches still ahead of you. The weather is trying to kill you. The weather will eventually succeed. It's just a question of timing. Let's talk about something the historical documentaries never quite address. Where do you go to the bathroom when you're locked in a tower for 6 months? The answer is both simple and soul-crushing. You go in a bucket. The same bucket your 5 roommates use. The bucket that lives in the corner of the guard quarters, collecting contributions from 6 diseased medieval digestive systems, fermenting in the enclosed space, creating an olfactory nightmare that becomes the baseline smell of your existence. The bucket is wooden, reinforced with iron bands, and old, very old. You can tell by the stains, the cracks that have been inexpertly patched, the way the wood has absorbed decades of bodily fluids and taken on a color that doesn't exist in nature. It's about 2 feet tall, maybe 18 inches in diameter, and by the time 6 guards have been using it for a day and a half, it's dangerously full. Emptying the bucket is a duty that rotates among the guards, which means every 6 days, it's your turn to experience a special circle of hell. You have to carry this sloshing container of human waste down the ladder to the ground floor, across the bailey to the midden heap behind the stables. Dump it without splashing yourself, impossible. Rinse the bucket at the well inadequately, and carry it back up. The entire castle gets to watch you do this. There's no dignity in tower guard duty, but bucket day removes whatever shreds might remain. Your first bucket day arrives in week 3. You've been dreading it since you arrived. Peter demonstrates the proper technique. Grip the handle with both hands, hold it away from your body, move slowly. Don't rush on the stairs, he warns. Thomas rushed last month, fell on step 22, covered himself head to toe. He smelled like death for a week. You grip the handle. The bucket is heavier than expected. Waste has weight, turns out, especially when it's been accumulating for 36 hours. The smell is indescribable, a physical presence that makes your eyes water and your stomach clench. You breathe through your mouth, which helps until you realize you can taste it. Then breathing through your nose seems like the better option despite the olfactory assault. Down the ladder, 1 rung at a time, the bucket swings slightly with each step, and you're intensely aware that you're 1 misstep away from disaster. The liquid inside moves in ways that defy prediction. Physics is happening in that bucket, waves and momentum, and you're just trying not to create the catastrophic slosh that will ruin your day and possibly your life. You make it to ground level. Small victory. Now the door. 5.5 feet tall, remember? You have to crouch while holding a bucket of waste at arm's length. You go too low and the bucket hits the ground, splashing your boots. You don't go low enough and you crack your head on the lintel while holding human feces. There's no winning. The Bailey is its usual chaos. The blacksmith is hammering something. Children are playing some kind of game involving a pig bladder. A merchant is arguing with the gate guard about tariffs. Normal castle life. And here you come, walking carefully across the cobblestones, carrying the bucket of shame. People notice. Of course they notice. Some move aside with sympathy. They understand the duty, the necessity. Others wrinkle their noses in disgust. A few children point and laugh until their mothers shush them. You're the entertainment for 30 seconds, the reminder that even guards are still just people dealing with bodily functions in a world without plumbing. The midden heap is behind the stables, which means navigating around the building. The path is narrow, muddy from constant traffic and questionable drainage. Your boots slip. The bucket swings. For one heart-stopping moment you think you're going down, bucket and all, into the mud. You catch yourself. The waste sloshes dangerously but stays contained. You breathe again. The midden heap is exactly what it sounds like. A pile of garbage, human waste, animal waste, rotting food, dead things, and general refuse that medieval castles produce in staggering quantities. It's approximately 10 feet tall, 20 feet across, and emanates a smell that makes your bucket seem like roses. This is where everything ends up. This is the castle's digestive system's final destination. You dump the bucket. The contents stream out, adding to the pile, mixing with everything else that's been discarded. Flies rise in clouds. The top layer of the midden is moving, writhing with maggots and beetles and things you don't want to identify. You notice rats, big ones, casually navigating the pile like shoppers at a market. One of them is watching you, completely unafraid. It knows it owns this place. The well is back across the Bailey. You're supposed to rinse the bucket, but using the main well for this purpose is frowned upon. There's a separate, smaller well near the stables specifically for washing and less savory purposes. The water from this well is brown. Not slightly brown, actively brown with things floating in it. But you dunk the bucket anyway, swish it around, dump the brown water out. The bucket is now clean by medieval standards, which is to say it's wet and slightly less encrusted. The walk back to your tower is a mirror of the walk out, except now everyone who saw you leave knows you're returning from bucket duty. There's a certain something in their eyes, pity maybe, or relief that it's you and not them. The castle operates on a hierarchy, and today you've been reminded exactly where tower guards fit. You're above the dung collectors and the privy diggers, but not by much. Up the ladder with the empty bucket. It's lighter now but somehow feels heavier, weighed down by the knowledge that it will fill again, that you'll do this again, that 6 more days from now you'll repeat this exact journey. The bucket goes back in its corner. Within an hour, someone will use it. The cycle begins again. But bucket duty is just the scheduled horror. The unscheduled horrors are worse. About a month into your posting, you develop what the guards euphemistically call tower sickness. It starts with stomach cramps during your morning watch. Mild at first, ignorable. By hour 2, they're concerning. By hour 3, you're sweating and it has nothing to do with temperature. You're not due to be relieved for another hour. You're on the top platform, 60 feet from the nearest bucket, with 47 stairs and a ladder between you and relief. You clench. You try to focus on something else. You start counting stones in the opposite wall, a meditation technique that works for approximately 5 minutes. The cramps get worse. The kind of worse where you know with absolute certainty that you're not making it an hour. You're not making it half an hour. You might not make it 10 minutes. This is happening. The question is just where and how catastrophic. You could try to make it down the stairs. 47 uneven steps in your current condition seems unlikely. You'd probably make it to step 30 before disaster struck, and then you'd be sitting in your own filth halfway down a spiral staircase with 20 minutes left in your watch. The alternative is the platform itself. There are the drainage holes, the ones designed for rainwater. They're maybe 6 inches across, and they open directly onto the stairwell below. If someone's on the stairs at the wrong moment, you can't think about that. You can't think about anything except the immediate crisis. You choose a drainage hole on the south side, the one farthest from the trapdoor. You drop your hose, medieval pants that tie at the waist, and you do what you have to do. There's no dignity. There's no privacy. If someone in the Bailey looks up, they're getting a show. But the human body has its own priorities, and right now your body has decided that pride is a luxury you can't afford. The relief, physical relief, is immediate and overwhelming. You stay there for a moment, crouched over a drainage hole in a castle tower, and contemplate the series of life choices that led to this exact moment. You're supposed to be a man-at-arms, a respected member of the garrison. Instead, you're defecating through a hole in the floor like some kind of medieval gargoyle. You clean yourself with, well, there's not much available. You've got a piece of cloth in your pouch, meant for cleaning your spear tip, but it serves double duty now. You'll rinse it later. Maybe. The medieval relationship with cleanliness is complicated by the simple fact that being truly clean requires resources, water, soap, time, that tower guards don't have. Marcus relieves you on schedule. He takes one look at your face and knows. Tower sickness? He asks. You nod. Bucket's full anyway, he continues. Peter was up here at dawn. Whatever's going around, we've all got it. Down in the guard quarters, the situation is grim. The bucket is indeed full, dangerously close to overflowing. Peter is lying on his pallet, curled around his stomach, groaning occasionally. Thomas is attempting to eat bread and failing, his face a grayish color that suggests he's fighting the same battle you just lost. William is the only one who seems unaffected, probably because his medieval immune system has had 40 years to develop defenses against every possible pathogen. Bad water, William diagnoses. Well's been contaminated. Happens every few months. Some dead rat falls in or runoff from the stables gets in during rain. We'll all be sick for a week. A week. 7 days of this. 56 watches total. Half of them while your intestines are staging a rebellion. You lie on your pallet and try to calculate whether you can make it 6 hours until your next watch, or whether you'll need to use the bucket before then. The bucket that's already full. The bucket that needs emptying but no one is healthy enough to carry it. The smell in the guard quarters has gone from bad to unbearable. 6 sick men in an enclosed space, all dealing with digestive distress, with one overflowing bucket and limited ventilation. The arrow-slit windows don't provide enough airflow. The smell just sits there, thick and oppressive, making everyone more nauseous, which leads to more use of the bucket, which makes the smell worse. It's a feedback loop of misery. You make it 2 hours before you need the bucket again. You're not alone, there's a line. 3 guards waiting their turn while whoever's currently using it does their business with absolutely zero privacy. You all face away, stare at the walls, try to pretend this isn't happening. But you're all acutely aware of every sound, every smell, every moment of this degrading situation. The tower master comes by on day 2 of the outbreak. He takes one look at the situation, one breath of the air, and his face registers disgust. Bucket should have been emptied yesterday, he snaps. This is unacceptable. We're all sick, sir, Marcus says from his pallet. Contaminated well water. Then drink the beer, the tower master responds, as if this solves everything. Empty that bucket. Now, I don't care who does it, but it happens in the next hour or I'm docking pay. You end up drawing the short straw. Literally, William produces 6 pieces of straw, different lengths, and whoever gets the shortest does bucket duty. You get the shortest. Of course you do. The universe has decided that today, on top of being sick with tower sickness, you're also going to carry an overflowing bucket of diseased waste down a spiral staircase while fighting to keep your own bowels under control. The journey is a nightmare. The bucket is heavier than usual, more content, more dense. It sloshes with every step, threatening to overflow onto your hands, your boots, the stairs. You're moving in slow motion, placing each foot with excessive care while your stomach cramps remind you that you're on a timer. If your body decides to stage another rebellion while you're on these stairs, holding this bucket, there's no good outcome. You make it, somehow. You dump the bucket at the midden heap while trying not to vomit from the combined smells. You rinse it in the brown well water. You carry it back up. You collapse on your pallet, exhausted from a task that shouldn't be exhausting, and lie there for 3 hours until your next watch. The sickness passes eventually. A week of misery, just like William predicted. But it leaves you weaker, thinner, more worn down. And it will happen again. Contaminated water is a regular feature of castle life. Historians still argue whether medieval people were aware of the connection between water quality and illness. They clearly knew that some water sources were bad without understanding the mechanism. But standing here in week 5, recovering from your second bout of tower sickness, you really don't care about the academic debate. You just know that the water will make you sick, the bucket will be there, and the cycle will continue. There are other hygiene horrors. Lice, for instance. Everyone has lice. It's not a question of cleanliness. Even nobles have lice. You first notice them in week 2, a persistent itching at your hairline. By week 3, you can see them. Tiny, persistent, impossible to eliminate without resources you don't have. You try picking them out during your off hours, crushing them between your thumbnails, but for everyone you kill, 2 more appear. It's biblical. Fleas are worse. They live in the straw pallets, in your clothes, in every fabric surface. They bite constantly, leaving red welts that itch for days. You wake up in the morning covered in new bites, dozens of them, a constellation of tiny wounds. Some get infected. Any broken skin can become infected in these conditions. And then you're dealing with small abscesses that ooze and hurt and never quite heal because you're constantly rubbing against stone walls and rough cloth. Bathing is theoretical. There's no bath facility in the tower, obviously. Once a month, if you're lucky, you might get permission to use the communal washing tub in the bailey. You heat water, pour it in a barrel, and attempt to scrub off a month of accumulated filth. The water turns black almost immediately. You share this water with other guards. By the time 6 men have used it, you're essentially bathing in a stew of everyone's dirt. But it's better than nothing. Slightly. Your teeth are rotting. You can feel it happening, a slow dissolution at the gum line. Medieval diet and medieval hygiene are murder on dental health. The constant consumption of bread, which is basically sugar to your mouth bacteria, combined with no effective dental care, means cavities and gum disease are inevitable. Thomas lost 2 teeth last month. They just fell out during a meal, landed in his pottage. He fished them out, looked at them for a moment, then kept eating. What else could he do? The guards who've been here longest have a certain look. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, aged beyond their years. William is 40 but looks 60. His teeth are mostly gone. His skin has a gray tinge from years of poor nutrition and worse hygiene. His hands shake slightly, a constant tremor that he says is from the cold but that you suspect is something more permanent. This is what tower duty does, given enough time. It breaks you down system by system until there's not much left. You're lying on your pallet on day 42 of your posting, scratching at flea bites, feeling a new tooth cavity with your tongue. When the realization hits, you're not going to leave this tower healthy. Even if you survive the full 6 months, And the odds of that are not great. You'll leave damaged. Physically damaged, possibly permanently. The cold will have destroyed your joints. The disease will have compromised your immune system. The malnutrition will have weakened your bones. The sheer grinding misery will have aged you a decade. This is the reality that the history books gloss over. Medieval castle life wasn't romantic. It was shit buckets and contaminated water and parasites and tooth decay and slow, grinding deterioration of everything that makes a body functional. The glory and honor of military service looks a lot different when you're crouched over a drainage hole with dysentery, watching your dignity literally drain away. But your watch starts in an hour. The bucket needs emptying again. Your flea bites need scratching. Life in the tower goes on, hygiene nightmare by hygiene nightmare, until eventually something breaks permanently or your term ends. Whichever comes first. Sleep, the thing you used to take for granted, back when you were a normal person with a normal life. Back before you understood that sleep could be weaponized, broken down into fragments so small they barely qualify as rest, stretched across a schedule designed by someone who clearly hated human biology. You've been in the tower for 2 months now, and you genuinely cannot remember the last time you slept for more than 3 consecutive hours. The math is simple and brutal. 4 hours on watch, 8 hours off. Sounds reasonable until you factor in reality. Those 8 hours off include climbing down from your watch, 15 minutes if you're careful on the stairs, eating whatever meal you can scrounge, 30 minutes, performing maintenance duties, an hour minimum, cleaning weapons, hauling water, general tower upkeep, and preparing for your next watch, 30 minutes. Getting armored up, checking equipment, mentally preparing to climb those stairs again. That leaves you with maybe 6 hours for actual sleep. Except you can't fall asleep immediately. Your body is too wired from the watch, too cold, too uncomfortable, so subtract another hour. 5 hours of potential sleep. But wait, there's more. The guard quarters never achieve silence. There are always at least 2 other guards in the room with you, on their own shifted schedules. Someone's always coming up the ladder, banging around, talking, coughing that chronic tower cough. Someone's always using the bucket. You can hear everything, every sound echoing off stone walls. Someone's always moving on their pallet, the straw crunching, muttering in their sleep. Perfect silence is a memory from your previous life. So you're lying on your pallet at what you think is roughly 10 at night. Time is fuzzy when you're on a 4-hour rotation that doesn't align with natural day-night cycles, trying desperately to fall asleep because your next watch starts at 2 in the morning. Your body is exhausted, genuinely tired in a way that goes bone deep. But your mind won't stop. It's spinning through the same anxious loops. Did you secure your spear properly? Is your equipment ready? What if you oversleep? What if no one wakes you and you miss your watch? Missing your watch is a disaster. The punishment ranges from docking pay to actual flogging, depending on the tower master's mood. You've seen it happen. Marcus overslept by 30 minutes in week 3, and the tower master had him flogged with 5 lashes. Not enough to cause permanent damage, but enough to leave marks, enough to hurt for a week. So now Marcus sleeps like you sleep, fitfully, anxiously, constantly half awake in case he needs to get up. You drift off, finally, maybe 40 minutes after lying down. It's not deep sleep, you're too cold for deep sleep, too uncomfortable, too aware of where you are, but it's something. Unconsciousness or close enough. Your brain starts processing the day, filing away memories, trying to do the essential maintenance work that sleep is supposed to accomplish. 90 minutes later, Thomas shakes you awake. Your watch, he says, and you want to weep. 90 minutes. That's all you got. Your body feels worse than before you lay down, somehow. Sleep inertia is hitting you hard. That groggy, disoriented feeling of being yanked from unconsciousness. You sit up and your head spins. Your eyes feel like they're full of sand. Your mouth tastes like something died in it. You armor up. The chain mail feels impossibly heavy at 2 in the morning. Every buckle, every tie, every piece of equipment is a monumental task when you're this tired. Your fingers fumble with knots you could tie in your sleep during daylight hours. Except you can't sleep, that's the whole problem. Up the stairs. 47 steps that feel like 400. Your legs are lead weights. Your knees protest every step, that chronic tower knee pain flaring up. The spiral makes you dizzy. You're already disoriented from lack of sleep, and the clockwise climb compounds it. You have to stop twice to lean against the newel, fighting vertigo, willing yourself not to fall. You emerge onto the watch platform into the cold slap of a November night. The stars are out, at least it's not raining, but the temperature has dropped below freezing. Your breath comes out in clouds. The wind cuts through your armor like it's not even there. You're so tired that you don't even feel the cold at first. Your brain hasn't fully come online yet. Marcus briefs you in monotone. Nothing's happening. Nothing will happen. Ring the bell if you see something. Standard procedure. Then he's gone, descending to the relative warmth below, leaving you alone with 4 hours of darkness and cold and nothing to do except try to stay awake. This is where it gets dangerous. Your body desperately wants sleep. You've given it 90 minutes when it needs 8 hours, and now you're asking it to stand upright and maintain alertness in a dark, cold, boring environment. Every fiber of your being is screaming for you to lie down. Close your eyes. Rest. Just for a moment. Just for a few seconds. You walk your circuits. The standard defense against sleep. Keep moving. Stay active. 40 feet around the platform over and over. Except your exhaustion is so profound that you can walk and fall asleep simultaneously. It's a weird state, almost like sleepwalking. Your body goes through the motions while your brain checks out. You'll come to awareness suddenly mid-step with no memory of the last circuit. Or the last 3 circuits. You slap your face. The old trick trying to shock yourself awake. It works for maybe 10 minutes. Then the drowsiness returns, heavier than before. You bite the inside of your cheek, using pain to maintain consciousness. You sing quietly, old tavern songs, hymns, anything to keep your mind engaged. Your voice sounds strange in the darkness, swallowed by the wind. 2 hours in, you catch yourself sitting down. You don't remember sitting. You were walking, and then suddenly you're sitting against the Merlin, and several minutes have definitely passed. This is bad. This is how guards fall asleep on watch and get flogged. You leap to your feet, heart hammering with adrenaline and fear. How long were you out? A minute? 5 minutes? 10? There's no way to know. You try more drastic measures. You remove your glove and press your bare hand against the frozen stone. The cold is so intense it burns. You hold it there until your hand goes numb, until the pain is too much, then switch hands. Keeps you awake through sheer discomfort. You're torturing yourself to stay conscious, and it works, sort of. 3 hours in, you're having microsleeps. These are brief episodes, 3 to 15 seconds, where you actually fall asleep while standing upright. Your eyes close, your brain shuts down, and you're genuinely unconscious for a handful of seconds before you jerk awake again. Historians still argue whether microsleep was a common issue for medieval guards, or whether the historical record just doesn't capture it, but living it right now, you know it's real and it's terrifying. During one microsleep, you dream. Not a full dream, there isn't time, but a flash of imagery. You're in a warm bed in a warm room. Sunlight is streaming through a window. Someone is bringing you breakfast. Then you're awake again, standing on a frozen tower platform at 4 in the morning. And the contrast between dream and reality is so crushing you could cry. For hours. Finally, you've made it. Your relief arrives. Peter looking as exhausted as you feel, and you descend. Back to the guard quarters, where you'll have another 8 hours before your next watch. 8 hours that will somehow vanish while providing inadequate rest. The cycle continues. Day after day, the schedule breaks you down. Your body never fully recovers from one watch before you're doing the next. You exist in a state of permanent exhaustion, where your baseline is tired, and sometimes you achieve desperately tired or dangerously tired, but never rested. Sleep debt accumulates like interest on a loan you can't repay. The effects compound. After a month on this schedule, you're forgetting things. Simple things like whether you've eaten today or what day it is, or the name of the guard you've been working alongside for weeks. Your short-term memory is shot. Sleep deprivation does that. It interferes with your brain's ability to form new memories, to consolidate information, to function normally. Your reaction time is slower. Everything takes longer to process. Someone asks you a question and you stare at them for several seconds, parsing the words, formulating a response, then forgetting what they asked. In combat, this would be fatal. During routine tower duty, it's just humiliating. You're clumsier. You drop things. You trip on stairs you've climbed 1,000 times. You bump into walls, knock over cups, fumble with equipment. Your brain isn't properly coordinating with your body. The connection is there, but it's laggy, delayed, unreliable. Your mood deteriorates. Everything is irritating. The other guard's breathing bothers you. The sound of someone eating makes you irrationally angry. You snap at people over nothing, then feel guilty, then too tired to properly apologize. Sleep deprivation does strange things to emotional regulation. You'll find yourself nearly crying over a piece of dropped bread, or laughing hysterically at something that's not funny, or staring blankly at a wall for 20 minutes. The hallucinations start around week 8. Not dramatic hallucinations, you're not seeing dragons or hearing voices. Just small perceptual errors that your sleep-deprived brain produces. Shadows move at the edge of your vision. You hear footsteps on the stairs that aren't there. You could swear someone just said your name, but when you turn around, no one's there. These are hypnagogic hallucinations, your brain slipping into dream state while you're still awake. But you don't know that term. You just know you're going slightly crazy. The other guards are in the same boat. William, who seemed indestructible at first, is showing cracks. He fell asleep during watch last week. Actually fell asleep, unconscious for maybe an hour before he jolted awake. He didn't report it. No one reported it. There's an unspoken code among tower guards. We don't rat each other out for sleep-related failures because we're all one bad night away from the same thing. Thomas has started talking to himself during watch. You can hear him sometimes from the stairs, having full conversations with nobody. He swears he's not doing it, gets defensive if you mention it. But you've all heard him. Sleep deprivation can create this, a kind of dissociation where part of your brain splits off and you don't even realize you're speaking out loud. Marcus has the shakes now, a constant tremor in his hands that he can't control. It's worse when he's tired, which means it's always bad. He dropped his spear during watch yesterday, watched it clatter down the stairs, didn't even react, just stood there, swaying slightly, staring at nothing. The tower master knows. He has to know. This is what tower duty does. It's not a secret. But the castle needs guards on these towers, and bodies are cheaper than comfort. 6 men slowly breaking down is an acceptable cost for maintained vigilance. That's the calculation. Your health, your sanity, your ability to function as a normal human being, all secondary to the tower being watched. You start having intrusive thoughts about sleep. Not just wanting to sleep, that's constant, but obsessive thoughts. You find yourself calculating. If you jumped from the tower, you'd be unconscious before you hit the ground. That would be like sleep, sort of. Obviously, you're not going to jump. The thought is insane, but it appears in your mind unbidden and won't leave. This is what sleep deprivation does. It makes rest seem so desirable that your brain starts considering any possible route to unconsciousness. You dream about sleeping. When you do manage to grab those 90-minute fragments of rest, you dream about being asleep. Full, deep, restful sleep in a comfortable bed in a warm room. Then you wake up and you're still in the tower, still cold, still exhausted, and the dream mocks you. You were asleep dreaming about sleeping, and somehow you're more tired now than before. Night watch is worse than day watch. At least during the day, sunlight helps maintain alertness. Your circadian rhythm is trying to work with you. But night watch, standing in darkness, in cold, with nothing to see and nothing to do, is torture. Your body knows it should be asleep. Every cell is screaming for rest. You're fighting biology itself, and biology always wins eventually. You've seen what eventually looks like. There's a guard in the West Tower who's been on duty for 2 years. 2 years of this schedule. His name is Edmund, though everyone calls him Ghost, because he moves like he's not entirely present, like part of him has already left his body. He doesn't speak much. His eyes are vacant, staring at nothing. He performs his duties mechanically, walking his circuits, changing his watch, but there's no one home. Sleep deprivation for 2 years has broken something fundamental in his brain. You're 3 months in, halfway through your 6-month posting if you make it that long. You're already forgetting what it felt like to be well-rested. That memory is fading, becoming abstract. Was there really a time when you could sleep 8 hours and wake up refreshed? Seems impossible now, like a fairy tale. Your body is adapting, sort of. You're learning to function on minimal sleep. Not well, you're definitely not functioning well, but functioning. You can climb the stairs while mostly unconscious. You can stand your watch while your brain is in some kind of standby mode. You're becoming Ghost, slowly, one sleepless night at a time. The worst part is knowing it will continue. Tomorrow, another watch. The day after, another watch. 4-hour blocks of enforced wakefulness, scattered across the clock, preventing any normal sleep pattern from establishing. This is your life now. This is your foreseeable future. Sleep is a luxury from your past, a fantasy for your future, and absent from your present. You lie on your pallet with 3 hours until your next watch, trying desperately to fall asleep, knowing you probably won't manage more than 90 minutes, knowing it's not enough, knowing it will never be enough, knowing that tomorrow you'll be even more tired, and the next day more tired still, accumulating sleep debt that compounds like interest until eventually something breaks. But not tonight. Tonight you have a watch to stand. So you close your eyes, beg for unconsciousness, and pray that when Peter shakes you awake in 3 hours, you'll have the strength to climb those stairs one more time. Food. Let's talk about what you're eating, or more accurately, what's eating you from the inside out as you slowly starve on a technically adequate medieval diet. You've been in the tower for 3.5 months now, and you've lost weight. Not the good kind of weight loss. You're not getting lean and fit. You're getting gaunt, hollow. Your ribs are starting to show through your tunic. Your face has that sunken look you've seen on the older guards, the look that says your body is consuming itself because what you're feeding it isn't quite enough. Breakfast arrives at dawn, delivered by a kitchen boy who clearly resents having to climb to the guard quarters. He dumps a basket on the table and leaves without a word. Inside, 6 portions of bread, 6 cups of small beer, and if you're lucky, some cheese. The bread is dark, made from maslin, a mixture of wheat and rye that's cheaper than pure wheat flour. It's dense, heavy, and stale. Always stale. The kitchen bakes every 3 days, so by day 3, you're eating bread that could double as a weapon. You pick up your portion. This may be 6 ounces, which sounds like a decent amount until you realize this has to fuel 4 hours of standing in cold wind on top of a tower. The crust is hard enough to crack teeth. You've learned to soak it in beer first, softening it into something chewable. The interior is gummy, with a sour tang that suggests the grain was already turning when it was milled. There are definitely things in the bread that aren't grain. Dark specks that might be ergot, a fungus that can cause hallucinations and gangrene, bits of chaff, possibly mouse droppings. You eat around what you can see and try not to think about what you can't. The cheese is a small mercy when it appears, maybe twice a week. It's hard cheese, the kind that can survive without refrigeration because it's essentially already decomposed in a controlled way. It tastes sharp, almost bitter, with a texture like chalk. But it's protein and fat, two things your diet desperately lacks, so you eat every crumb. The small beer is your primary source of hydration. It's called small because it's weak, maybe 2 to 3% alcohol, enough to kill most bacteria but not enough to get you drunk. It tastes like liquid bread, which makes sense since it's basically the byproduct of bread making, the water that grains were soaked in, fermented and slightly carbonated. It's not good, but it's better than the alternative, which is water from the well that will give you dysentery. This is breakfast. Every day. The same bread, the same beer, occasionally some cheese. No fruit. Fruit is for people with money or access to orchards. No vegetables. Those are in the Lord's kitchen, going into dishes for the high table. No eggs, no meat, no variety whatsoever. Just bread and beer and the knowledge that you'll eat this exact meal tomorrow and the day after that. Midday meal comes around noon if the kitchen remembers. Today it's pottage, carried up in a large pot that the guards share. Pottage is the medieval working-class staple, a thick stew of whatever's available, boiled together until it achieves a consistency somewhere between soup and paste. Today's version contains oats, onions, and something that might be turnip. There are chunks of something darker that could be meat, but you're not confident. It might be gristle. It might be organ meat. It might be something that fell into the pot and the cook decided was close enough to food. You eat it with your fingers, scooping the pottage with chunks of bread. Utensils are for people who matter. You're a tower guard, you get a shared pot and bread for scooping. The pottage is lukewarm by the time it reaches you because it had to be carried across the bailey and up into the tower. Season with salt, just salt, nothing else. No herbs, no spices, those cost money. The flavor is aggressively bland, the kind of bland that makes your mouth bored. But here's the thing, you're hungry enough that it tastes fine. That's what months in the tower do. They recalibrate your palate. Fresh bread would probably blow your mind now. A piece of roasted meat would seem like a luxury beyond imagining. An apple would be a religious experience. But you're getting pottage, so you eat pottage and you're grateful because at least it's warm and it fills your stomach. Except it doesn't really fill your stomach. Not adequately. The portion is calculated to keep you alive and functional, but not satisfied. Never satisfied. You finish eating and you're still hungry. That gnawing emptiness that's become your constant companion. Your body needs more calories than you're getting. You're burning energy standing in cold weather for 16 hours a day, climbing stairs, maintaining equipment, and you're underfed. Evening meal is bread again. Just bread. Maybe some pottage left over from midday if the pot wasn't empty. Usually just bread. You're eating maybe 2 pounds of bread per day total, plus the pottage, plus the beer. In terms of calories, you're probably getting around 2,000 to 2,200 per day. For a sedentary person, that might be adequate. For someone doing physical labor in cold conditions, you need closer to 3,000 to 3,500 calories. You're running a deficit of 1,000 calories per day. That's why you're losing weight. Your body is making up the difference by consuming itself. The nutritional deficiencies are worse than the raw calorie shortage. Your diet is almost entirely carbohydrates, bread, oats, beer. You're getting minimal protein, almost no fat, and virtually zero vitamins. This is a recipe for multiple deficiency diseases, and you're starting to experience them. Your gums are bleeding. Not dramatically, but when you bite into bread, you taste copper. When you wake up, There's blood on your palate where your mouth was. This is early-stage scurvy, vitamin C deficiency from a diet with no fresh fruits or vegetables. It will get worse. Left untreated, scurvy leads to tooth loss, joint pain, wounds that won't heal, and eventually death. You're months away from severe scurvy, but the process has started. Your night vision is deteriorating. You've noticed it during evening watches. You can't see as well in low light as you could when you arrived. This is vitamin A deficiency, called night blindness in medieval times, though they didn't understand the mechanism. Without vitamin A from sources like liver, dairy, or vegetables, your eyes literally lose the ability to process low light. This is particularly dangerous given that half your watches are in darkness. Your teeth are loose. When you prod them with your tongue, they move slightly in their sockets. This is a combination of scurvy and general malnutrition. Your body is leaching calcium from your teeth and bones to maintain other functions. Thomas lost 2 teeth last month. Remember? This is why. Medieval diet plus poor hygiene equals dental catastrophe. You're perpetually constipated, then occasionally have explosive diarrhea when your gut finally gives up trying to process the bread. Your digestion is a mess. The bread is high in fiber, which should help, but it's also extremely dry, and you're chronically dehydrated despite drinking beer all day. Your intestines are struggling. The bread itself is potentially poisonous. That ergot you saw in the flour? It's a fungus that grows on rye, particularly in wet conditions, and it contains compounds that constrict blood vessels and cause hallucinations. In large doses, it causes ergotism, also called St. Anthony's fire, where your extremities lose blood flow and literally die while still attached to your body. Your fingers and toes turn black and fall off. You've heard stories of entire villages affected by ergot-contaminated bread. You're probably not eating enough to cause acute ergotism, but chronic low-level exposure? That's giving you headaches, adding to your hallucinations, possibly contributing to the general sense that you're slowly losing your mind. The pottage is its own adventure in food safety. Medieval cooking doesn't kill all bacteria. They're boiling at altitude in an iron pot without temperature control. Some bacteria survive. Some thrive in the lukewarm conditions during transport. You've had food poisoning 3 times now. It's characterized by the usual symptoms: vomiting, diarrhea, fever, the desperate wish for death. You ride it out on your palate, missing watches when it's really bad, forced to stand watch while your intestines rebel when it's not quite bad enough to be excused. There's no concept of food safety beyond, does it smell actively rotten? The kitchen stores food in conditions that would horrify a modern health inspector. Meat hangs in a warm room, slowly decomposing, covered in flies. Grain is stored in sacks that rats have definitely visited. The water used for cooking comes from the questionable well. Cross-contamination is constant. The same cutting board for raw meat and vegetables, the same unwashed hands touching everything, the same pot used for multiple meals without proper cleaning. You're sitting in the guard quarters on a December evening, eating your portion of bread, when you notice something moving in it. Not moving because you're moving it, moving on its own. You break open the bread and there are weevils inside. Little brown beetles that have been living in the flour, got baked into the bread, and are now emerging from the warm interior. You pick out what you can see, but you know there are more, baked throughout. Eggs that haven't hatched yet. Larvae that got cooked but are still in there. You eat it anyway, because what choice do you have? You're hungry. This is your meal. Wasting food because of some bugs is a luxury you can't afford. You chew carefully, trying not to think about the texture, the occasional crunch that's definitely not grain. Protein is protein, right? That's what William says, and he's survived 40 years on this diet, so maybe there's something to it. The salt is probably killing you slowly. Everything is heavily salted. It's the primary preservative, the main seasoning, the solution to food going bad. But too much salt causes problems. Your blood pressure is probably elevated, though you don't have words for that concept. You're retaining water, bloating even as you lose overall weight. Your kidneys are working overtime, struggling to process the salt load. In 20 years, if you survive that long, you'll probably have kidney stones. But that's future you's problem. Feast days are the cruelest joke. Christmas, Easter, Saints' Days, the castle celebrates with special meals. The high table gets roasted meats, pies, sweetmeats, wine, everything luxurious and excessive. The smell drifts across the bailey, tormenting you. The kitchen is busy preparing elaborate dishes that you'll never taste. And your meal? The same bread and pottage as every other day. Maybe, if you're lucky, a slightly larger portion. Maybe an extra piece of cheese. But no feast.
No celebration.
The hierarchy is never clearer than on feast days, when the nobles are gorging and you're eating the same stale bread as always. You dream about food. Not sex, not home, not freedom, food. You have elaborate fantasies about roasted chicken, about fresh bread with butter, about apples and pears and grapes. You dream about eating until you're full, truly full, the kind of full where you couldn't eat another bite. It's been so long since you felt that. You can't even remember what satiation feels like. Your body is changing in ways beyond weight loss. Your hair is falling out. Not all of it, but more than normal. Clumps come out when you run your fingers through it. This is protein deficiency. Your body is prioritizing vital functions over hair growth. Your skin is dry and flaky, cracking at the knuckles and corners of your mouth. Your nails are brittle, breaking easily. These are all signs of malnutrition, your body rationing resources, deciding what's essential and what's expendable. The other guards are in the same state. You're all losing weight, all showing signs of deficiency diseases, all slowly starving on an adequate by medieval standards diet. Peter's teeth are falling out faster than yours. Marcus has developed open sores on his arms that won't heal, probably a combination of scurvy and infection. William, despite decades of this diet, has somehow adapted, or maybe he's just too stubborn to die. He eats the same terrible food and continues existing through sheer willpower. There's a dark irony in the fact that you're starving while the castle stores are full. Below you, in the keep, there are barrels of salted meat, wheels of cheese, sacks of flour, kegs of better beer. The Lord's larder is stocked for months. But that food isn't for you. That food is for people who matter, people whose nutrition is worth investing in. You're a tower guard. You get the minimum required to keep you upright and functional, and if that minimum slowly kills you, well, there's always another desperate man willing to take the position. You finish your evening bread, still hungry, and lie on your pallet to wait for your next watch. Your stomach growls. Your gums ache. Your body continues its slow process of consuming itself. 3 more months of this diet ahead of you if you last that long. 3 more months of bread and pottage and hunger and deficiency diseases. At least you're not a peasant working the fields, right? At least you've got regular meals, even if they're slowly killing you. These are the lies that help you swallow the next piece of stale, weevil-filled bread. Tomorrow's breakfast will be the same, and the day after, and the day after that. Welcome to medieval nutrition, where food is abundant and everyone's still starving. The bell rings at 3 in the morning, cutting through your fragment of sleep like a blade. Not your tower's bell. The alarm bell from the gatehouse, deeper and more urgent. You're awake instantly, heart hammering, because that bell means one thing. The castle is under attack. After 4 months of mind-numbing boredom, of waiting for something to happen, something is finally happening. And you're about to discover that boredom was vastly preferable to the alternative. You scramble off your pallet, grabbing your mail. The guard quarters erupts into chaos. 6 men trying to armor up in darkness. Everyone moving at once, elbows and knees colliding. Someone kicks over the bucket. The The smell is immediately catastrophic, but nobody cares because the alarm is still ringing and your hands are shaking so badly you can barely tie your gambeson. William is already armored. He sleeps in his mail sometimes, prepared for exactly this, and he's heading up the stairs. "Just raiders," he shouts back. "Probably just raiders." But his voice has an edge you haven't heard before. Fear. Real fear. William, who's survived 40 years of this, is scared. You follow him up the spiral stairs, taking them too fast, almost falling twice. Your mail is only half secured, hanging loose on one side. You don't have time to fix it. 47 steps climbed in maybe 30 seconds, your breath coming in gasps, your legs burning. You burst onto the watch platform into absolute chaos. The bailey below is lit by torches, people running everywhere. You can hear shouting, the clash of metal on metal from the direction of the gate. To the north, beyond the village, you can see flames, buildings burning, and moving toward the castle, maybe half a mile out, torches. Dozens of them. An organized force, not just random bandits. This is bad. Count them. William snaps. He's at the northern parapet, staring into the darkness. How many can you see? You try to count the torches, but they're moving, overlapping. 30? 40? I can't. More than that, he interrupts. See the darkness between the torch groups? Those are men without torches. I'd say 60, maybe 80. Too organized for simple raiders. Could be mercenaries, could be a rival lord's forces. Either way, we're about to have a very bad morning. The other towers have guards shouting signals, using flags that are barely visible in the darkness. You can't read them, you never properly learned the signal system because nothing ever happens. Except now something is happening and you're functionally illiterate in the language you're supposed to use. Crossbow. William barks at you. Get the crossbow loaded. Get bolts ready. You remember how to load it. You do, theoretically. You were shown once during your first week. You've never actually fired one. Your hands fumble with the mechanism, trying to remember the steps. The crossbow is a windlass type, requiring you to crank a mechanism to draw back the string. It's heavy, complicated, and your hands are shaking so badly you can barely grip the crank. The attacking force is getting closer. You can see them more clearly now. Men in armor, carrying weapons, moving with purpose toward the castle gate. The gate is closed, thank God. The drawbridge is up. But the castle is undermanned. Most of the garrison is out on patrol with the Lord, who left 3 days ago. You've got maybe 20 fighting men inside the walls, and most of those are older guards or young boys. This is not good. An arrow hits the Merlin 2 feet from your head. Not a crossbow bolt, a regular arrow fired from a longbow. It sticks there, quivering, and you stare at it stupidly for a moment before your brain processes what it means. Someone is shooting at you. You are a target. People are trying to kill you. Get down! William yells, but you're already dropping, pressing yourself against the stone. Your heart is trying to escape through your ribs. Your breathing is shallow, rapid, panic breathing. This is nothing like you imagined. There's no glory, no honor, just terror and confusion, and an arrow embedded 2 feet from where your head was. More arrows arc over the walls. Most miss. It's dark, you're high up, you're a difficult target. But one hits Peter. You hear him scream from the northwest tower, a sound that cuts through all the other noise. It's not a death scream, not quite, but it's bad. Someone is hurt, actually hurt. This is real. William is at the parapet, crossbow raised. He fires. The mechanism clacks. The bolt disappears into darkness, and you have no idea if it hit anything. Reload, he shouts at you. Get that other crossbow ready. You crawl to the weapon rack, staying low, and grab the second crossbow. Your hands are steadier now. The initial panic has been replaced by a kind of focused terror where your body just does what it's trained to do. You crank the windlass, load a bolt, crawl back to William. He takes it without a word, fires again. The enemy reaches the gate. You can see them clearly now, maybe 70 men, well armed, some carrying ladders. Ladders. They're going to try to scale the walls. Your walls. Your tower. Men are going to climb up here and try to kill you personally. Rocks. William yells. We've got rocks stored. Get them ready. There's a pile of stones in the corner of the platform, each about the size of a man's head. They're kept here specifically for this purpose, dropping them on attackers. It's brutally simple and brutally effective. You grab one, surprised by its weight, and stumble to the parapet. The first ladder hits your tower. You hear it, a wooden thunk against stone, and then you see the top of it appear over the edge of a crenel 15 feet to your left. Someone is climbing it. Someone is coming up to where you are. William doesn't hesitate. He grabs a stone and leans over the parapet, dropping it straight down. You hear it hit something, not stone, something softer, and a scream. The ladder tilts, falls away, but another one is already coming up, hitting the tower in a different spot. You force yourself to move. You grab a stone, approach the parapet, look down. Bad idea. Terrible idea. You're 60 feet up and there are men down there, faces upturned, shouting orders, moving with purpose. And one of them is climbing toward you, already 30 feet up the ladder, his face determined. You drop the stone. You don't aim, you just let it go and gravity does the rest. It tumbles, strikes the ladder halfway down, shatters it. The ladder breaks, falls, and the man climbing it falls with it. You watch him drop, watch him hit the ground, and you hear the impact even from up here. He doesn't move after hitting the ground. You might have just killed a man. You definitely just killed a man. There's no time to process it. Another ladder. More men climbing. William is dropping stones with mechanical efficiency, breaking ladder after ladder. You follow his example, becoming a machine that grabs stones and drops them. Don't think. Don't feel. Just defend. Something hot splatters your face. Boiling water from the northwest tower. They've got cauldrons up there, heating water over braziers, and they're pouring it onto attackers. You can hear the screams, even over everything else. Boiling water does terrible things to human bodies. You don't look. You just keep dropping stones. An hour passes, maybe two. Time loses meaning when you're in survival mode. The attacks on your tower have stopped. They've learned it's too costly. Move to other sections. But you can hear fighting elsewhere. The main gate is holding. The other towers are holding. But barely. Everything is barely. Dawn starts to break, and in the gray light you can see the battlefield clearly. Bodies at the base of your tower. 8, maybe 9 men who tried to climb and fell or were dropped. Some are moving, crawling, trying to reach safety. Some are still. The ground is red. An arrow catches you in the shoulder. You don't feel it at first, just a punch, like someone shoved you. Then the pain arrives, a white-hot spike that makes you gasp. You look down and there's an arrow shaft protruding from your mail, which didn't stop it, just slowed it down. The bolt is buried maybe 2 inches into your shoulder. Not deep enough to kill, deep enough to matter. William sees it, his face grim. Can you still fight? You nod, because what's the alternative? The attack is ongoing. You're needed. Personal injury is secondary to defense. He leaves the bolt in. Pulling it out now will cause more bleeding. You grab another stone with your good arm and keep fighting. The sun rises higher. The attack continues, but with less intensity. They're probing now, testing defenses, looking for weak points. They're not finding any. The castle is holding. You're holding. Through sheer desperate defense and dropping rocks on human beings, you're holding. Around mid-morning, a horn sounds. Not from the castle, from the enemy. They're retreating, pulling back. You watch them go, carrying their wounded, leaving their dead. They disappear into the tree line, and silence falls. You collapse against the parapet, breath coming in ragged gasps. The arrow in your shoulder is a constant burning pain. Your arms are shaking from dropping stones for hours. Your hands are bleeding from a dozen small cuts you don't remember getting. But you're alive. The tower is held. The castle is safe. William is sitting on the stone floor, back against the Merlin. His face is gray. There's blood on his leg you didn't notice before, but he's been wounded too. Worse than you. He's been fighting for hours with what looks like a sword cut across his thigh. First battle? He asks quietly. You nod. You did well. Stayed functional. That's all that matters. Peter didn't make it. The arrow that hit him caught his throat. He bled out on his platform before anyone could help. His body is still up there, cooling in the morning sun. Thomas has a broken arm from being hit by a stone that ricocheted. Marcus is fine, physically, but you can hear him vomiting over the side of his tower. Delayed reaction, the horror catching up. The tower master comes up the stairs an hour later. He looks at the carnage, at William's leg, at the arrow in your shoulder. Physician will see you in the bailey, he says.
No pras. No recognition.
Just acknowledgement of injury and orders to get patched up. The descent with an arrow in your shoulder is agony. Each step jars it, sending fresh spikes of pain through your body. You make it down, 47 steps that feel like 400, and emerge into a bailey that looks like a slaughterhouse. Blood everywhere. Bodies being carried to the chapel. Wounded men moaning. The smell of death already settling in. The physician is overwhelmed, dealing with serious injuries first. You wait your turn, sitting on a barrel, watching the arrow shaft move slightly with your breathing. When he finally gets to you, his examination is brief. It has to come out, he says.
No anesthetic.
No warning. He just grabs the shaft and pulls. You scream. No shame in it. Everyone screams. The bolt comes out and blood follows it, hot and red. He packs the wound with cloth soaked in something that burns worse than the original injury. Wine, maybe, or some medieval antiseptic. He wraps your shoulder tightly and moves to the next patient. You make it back to your tower, back up the stairs, back to the guard quarters. Your watch starts in 2 hours. Because the castle is still undermanned, still under potential threat, and wounded guards are expected to keep working unless they literally cannot. You lie on your pallet, shoulder throbbing, and stare at the ceiling. You killed men today, multiple men. You dropped stones on their heads and watched them fall. Some of them might have survived. Most didn't. You're a killer now. That's new. The nightmares start that night. Every time you close your eyes, you see faces looking up at you from the base of the ladder. Every time you drift toward sleep, you hear the impact of stone on skull. This is what combat does. It doesn't just wound your body. Welcome to month 4.5. You've survived your first battle. The arrow wound will probably get infected. Most do. Your shoulder will never work quite right again. And you've got another month and a half of this posting, assuming raiders don't come back. Assuming your wound doesn't kill you, assuming your mind holds together. At least it wasn't boring, right? At least something finally happened. Be careful what you wish for in a medieval tower. Sometimes the answer is violence, death, and trauma you'll carry forever. Sometimes boredom was the better option after all. The silence after the raid is worse than the raid itself. At least during the attack you had purpose, drop stones, defend the tower, stay alive. Simple directives that kept your mind occupied. But now, sitting in the guard quarters 3 days later with your shoulder wrapped in increasingly foul-smelling bandages, you have nothing to do except think. And thinking you're discovering is dangerous. You can't stop seeing them. The faces looking up at you as they climbed. The man you dropped the stone on, you remember his expression, the moment he realized what was happening, the split second before impact. That image plays on repeat behind your eyelids every time you blink. During your watch, you see movement that isn't there. Phantom climbers scaling phantom ladders. Your brain is stuck in defense mode, unable to accept that the threat is gone. The other guards are worse off. Marcus hasn't spoken in 3 days. He sits on his pallet, staring at the wall, occasionally making small movements like he's dropping stones that aren't there. He's replaying it, you realize. Over and over in his mind, he's fighting the battle that already ended. Thomas's broken arm is healing badly. The physician said it, but Thomas keeps moving it. Unconsciously defensive gestures that re-break the bone before it can fully knit. William is dying. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone knows. That sword cut on his thigh looked manageable at first, but it's infected now. The wound smells wrong, sweet, and rotten simultaneously. He's feverish, shaking on his pallet, occasionally calling out names of people who aren't here, maybe people who are already dead. After 40 years of tower duty, after surviving everything this life threw at him, an infection from a minor wound is what gets him. The isolation is crushing. You're locked in this tower with 5 other men. 6 if you count Peter's body, which stayed on the northwest platform for a full day before someone carried it down, and you've never felt more alone. You can't talk about what you saw, what you did. Medieval men don't have vocabulary for trauma, for PTSD, for the psychological aftermath of violence. You're just expected to be fine, to continue your duties, to pretend that killing multiple human beings didn't fundamentally alter something in your brain. Peter's replacement arrives on day 5. His name is John, he's maybe 19, and he has no idea what he's walking into. He takes one look at the guard quarters, at Marcus staring blankly, at Thomas cradling his badly set arm, at William sweating and muttering, at your blood-stained bandage, at the general atmosphere of trauma and despair, and you see his face change. He understands instantly that this isn't the prestigious military position he was promised. "What happened?" he asks quietly. Nobody answers. What would you say? Where would you even start? The Tower Master gives him the basic facts. Raiders, battle, casualties, but facts don't capture it. Facts don't explain why Marcus flinches at sudden sounds, or why you can't climb the stairs without your hands shaking, or why Thomas wakes up screaming 3 times a night. Your watch rotation is destroyed. William can't stand, let alone climb stairs. Thomas is one-handed and in constant pain. Marcus is somewhere else mentally. That leaves you, Peter, and John to cover 6 watch positions. The Tower Master's solution is simple. Longer watches. 6 hours instead of 4. 2 guards on, 1 guard off. It's unsustainable, but the castle is still undermanned and the tower must be watched. You're on the platform with John during his first watch, showing him the basics. He's trying hard, asking good questions, but you can see the fear in his eyes. He keeps looking at the base of the tower where the bodies were. They've been cleared away, but there are still stains on the cobblestones. Dark stains that the rain hasn't washed away yet. Does it get easier? He asks. You want to lie. You want to tell him yes, that time heals, that you adjust. But you're so tired, and the wound in your shoulder is throbbing, and William is dying downstairs, and Marcus is broken, and Peter is dead, and the truth just comes out. No, it gets worse. The boredom was better. The boredom was so much better. He doesn't ask any more questions. The infection in your shoulder is progressing. You can feel it. A heat spreading from the wound, tendrils of red tracking up toward your neck, down toward your chest. The physician changes the dressing every 2 days, packing it with cobwebs and moss and various substances that are supposed to help but probably just introduce new bacteria. Medieval medicine is mostly guesswork and hope, and right now it's guessing wrong. You're feverish during your night watch, sweating in the cold air, shivering when you should be fine. The platform seems to tilt slightly, your sense of balance off. You're having trouble distinguishing reality from hallucination. Is that a man climbing the ladder? Or are you imagining it? Are those voices below? Or is it just the wind? You're alone up here, alone with your fever and your memories and the growing certainty that you might not survive this. William dies on day 8 after the raid. You're all there when it happens, between watches, all gathered in the guard quarters because nobody wants him to die alone. He's been unconscious for a day, fever dreams making him thrash occasionally. Then around midnight he just stops. His breathing ceases. His face relaxes. The man who survived 40 years of this finally succumbs to an infected wound that shouldn't have killed him. The Tower Master collects his body the next morning.
No ceremony, no recognition.
Just removal of a body that's now taking up space needed for living guards. William's belongings, a spare tunic, a carved wooden spoon, a blanket that's more holes than fabric, are distributed among you. You get the blanket. It still smells like him, like sweat and sickness and stone. You're down to 4 functioning guards now, for a position that requires 6. The math is impossible. The watches are brutal. 8 hours on, 8 hours off, except 4 of those 8 off hours are spent on maintenance and eating and trying to sleep. You're getting maybe 4 hours of sleep per day, and that's broken sleep interrupted by nightmares. The loneliness is existential. You're surrounded by people. John is right there on the platform with you. Marcus is 1 floor below. But you're utterly isolated. Nobody understands what's in your head except the other guards, and they're too trapped in their own heads to help. You can't talk to the kitchen staff or the other garrison members because they weren't there, they didn't see, they can't comprehend. You're locked in your trauma with no way to process it, no way to release it. You start having intrusive thoughts. Not about sleep anymore, those seem quaint now. About ending it. The tower is 60 feet tall. A fall would solve everything. No more watches, no more infected wound, no more replaying the moment of impact over and over. Just a brief fall and then nothing. The thoughts are persistent, seductive, logical. You don't jump. Not because you don't want to, but because some small stubborn part of your brain insists on surviving. Maybe it's just biology, the fundamental drive to continue existing. Maybe it's the knowledge that jumping would leave John and the others even more short-handed. Maybe you're just too tired to make the effort. Either way, you keep standing your watches. The superstitions start in week 5. You begin to believe the tower is cursed. How else to explain the run of bad luck? The raid that killed Peter, the infection that killed William, Marcus's breakdown, your wound that won't heal. The other guards start believing it too. Thomas swears he sees Peter's ghost on the northwest platform at night. Marcus insists he can hear William coughing in the guard quarters. John, despite being new, is already muttering prayers to saints, asking for protection from whatever malevolent force lives in the stone. Historians still argue whether medieval soldiers were more or less superstitious than civilians, whether military life reinforced or challenged supernatural beliefs. Standing here in your cursed tower, watching Marcus talk to walls, you understand that trauma looks for explanations. The rational explanation that you're all suffering from PTSD, infection, malnutrition, and sleep deprivation in a pre-modern military installation is too mundane. The curse feels more real. Evil in the stones feels more believable than the simple, grinding awfulness of your circumstances. You develop rituals. You touch the same stone on step 17 every time you climb. You mutter the same prayer before each watch. You arrange your equipment in exactly the same way every time, and if something is out of place, you start over. These are superstitions, coping mechanisms, attempts to exert control in a situation where you have none. They don't help, not really, but they give structure to chaos. Your shoulder wound develops something the physician calls proud flesh, tissue that grows wrong, infected and lumpy. He cuts it away without warning. No anesthetic, just a knife and your screams. The wound now has a crater in it, a divot in your shoulder that will never fill in properly. You'll carry this scar, this visible mark of the raid, for the rest of your life. However long that is, the sounds haunt you, not just the memory of impacts and screams, actual sounds that your damaged brain produces. You hear footsteps on the stairs when nobody's there. You hear Peter's voice calling out warnings. You hear the thunk of ladders hitting stone during quiet moments. Auditory hallucinations, though you don't have that term. You just know that your ears are lying to you, that your mind is producing phantom sounds to match the phantom images you see. Marcus stops eating. Not dramatically, he doesn't announce it, doesn't make a decision. He just forgets. Food appears and he stares at it without comprehension. John tries to force-feed him, holding bread to his mouth, but Marcus turns away. He's disappearing, fading, choosing non-existence over existence in this tower. The tower master notices but doesn't intervene. If a guard wants to starve himself, that's between him and God. You're in month 5 now. 1 month remaining on your original posting, assuming they don't extend it due to undermining. 1 month feels simultaneously like forever and like nothing. Forever because each day is an eternity of watches and pain and memories. Nothing because you can't imagine what life looks like after this. Going back to normal? What's normal? You've killed men. You've watched friends die. You've developed an infection that might still kill you. Normal doesn't exist anymore. The isolation is complete. You're physically isolated in the tower, emotionally isolated in your trauma, temporally isolated in your watches that don't align with normal day-night cycles. You exist outside regular castle life, outside human connection, outside time itself. You're a ghost haunting your own life, going through motions that no longer have meaning. John asks you one morning, after a particularly bad night watch where you hallucinated ladders for 3 straight hours, how do you keep going? You don't have an answer. You're not sure you are keeping going. You're just continuing, existing. The alternative is the fall, and you haven't taken it yet, so by default you're still here. That's not keeping going. That's just not stopping. You finally answer. You just don't stop. There's a difference. He thinks about this, nods slowly. He's learning. Give him a few more weeks and he'll understand completely. Give him a few more months and he'll be as broken as Marcus, as dead as William, as haunted as you. The tower doesn't let anyone escape undamaged. That's what it does. That's its purpose. Welcome to month 5. Your body is infected. Your mind is fractured. Your spirit is crushed. And you've got 4 more weeks of this. 4 more weeks of isolation, of watching, of slowly going mad in a stone cylinder 60 feet above a world that's continuing without you. The tower has won. It always wins. You're just waiting now to see whether it kills you or merely destroys you. Either way, the person who climbed these stairs 5 months ago is gone. Someone else will descend when your term ends. If your term ends, if you last that long, the silence is worst during night watches. Just you and the stone and the memories. Just you and the knowledge that this is breaking you, has broken you, will continue breaking whatever pieces remain. The tower doesn't need to be cursed. This is hell enough without supernatural intervention. 6 months. You made it. Somehow, against odds that seemed insurmountable, through cold and hunger and infection and trauma and isolation that would break most people, you made it to the end of your posting. It's a gray February morning when the tower master climbs the stairs to tell you your term is complete. You're being rotated out. A new guard is taking your place. You're done. You should feel relief, joy, something. But standing on the platform where you've spent so many hours, looking out over a landscape you could draw from memory with your eyes closed, you feel nothing, emptiness. The emotional range that exists between relief and despair has been worn smooth, like those stairs you've climbed thousands of times. You're just numb. The descent from your final watch is strange. 47 steps you've climbed and descended roughly 1,500 times over 6 months. You know every uneven surface, every crack, every smooth spot worn by generations of boots. Step 17 with its crack. Step 31 that's slightly higher than the others. Step 43 where the stone is discolored from some ancient stain. They're familiar in a way nothing else in your life is familiar anymore. You gather your belongings from the guard quarters. It doesn't take long. You arrived with almost nothing, and you're leaving with less. The blanket you inherited from William. A spare tunic that's more patched than original fabric. Your eating bowl, wooden and cracked. That's it. 6 months of your life compressed into objects that fit in a small sack. John watches you pack. He's been here 6 weeks now, still relatively new, still has some life in his eyes, though it's fading fast. What's it like? He asks. Outside. After. You don't know how to answer because you don't know. What is it like after? Do people go back to normal? Do they reintegrate into regular life, find work, start families, pretend this never happened? You've heard stories of former tower guards. They tend to drift, taking odd jobs, drinking too much, getting into fights. The tower marks you. Everyone can see it. Different, you finally say. Everything's different. Marcus is still here, still staring at walls, slowly starving. Thomas left 2 weeks ago, his badly healed arm giving him an early discharge. You heard he's begging in the village now, can't find real work with one functional arm. Peter and William are dead. The other guard who was here when you arrived, whose name you honestly can't remember anymore, was transferred out last month. You're the last of the original group. The only one who made it through the full term intact, if intact is the word for what you are now. The physical damage is obvious. Your shoulder wound has finally closed, mostly, but it's left a crater of scar tissue that limits your range of motion. You can't lift your arm above your head anymore. The malnutrition has left you gaunt, aged, your teeth loose in their sockets. You've got a chronic cough that won't leave, probably permanent lung damage from breathing cold damp air for 6 months. Your joints ache constantly, particularly your knees. You're 24 years old and you move like a man of 50. The psychological damage is less visible but more profound. You startle at sudden sounds. You can't sleep in enclosed spaces anymore. The guard quarters was enclosed, and now your brain associates walls with danger and trauma. You have nightmares every night, always the same. Men climbing ladders, stones falling, the impact. You wake up gasping, sweating, reaching for weapons that aren't there. You've developed what you think of as tower eyes, a way of constantly scanning, looking for threats, unable to relax. You watch horizons. You check exits. You calculate defensive positions without meaning to. Your brain is permanently stuck in guard mode, unable to accept that the threat is over, unable to stand down. The tower master processes your discharge in the bailey. There's no ceremony, no recognition of service. He hands you your back pay, 6 months of wages minus deductions for food and equipment. It's maybe a quarter of what you expected. Apparently they charged you for the crossbow bolts you used during the raid, for the food you ate while recovering from your wound, for William's blanket. The accounting is creative and entirely in the castle's favor. You survived, the tower master says, and it might be the closest thing to praise you'll receive. That's better than most. Peter didn't make it. William didn't make it. You did. Count yourself fortunate. Fortunate. You turn the word over in your mind and it doesn't fit. Nothing about the last 6 months feels fortunate. But you're alive, which is more than some can say. That has to count for something. Maybe. You walk across the Bailey for the last time. The cobblestones where bodies lay during the raid have been cleaned, but you can still see the stains if you look closely. Or maybe you're imagining them. It's hard to tell anymore what's real and what's memory and what's hallucination. The smith is working his forge. The kitchen is producing its usual smells. Life continues, normal and mundane, and you're struck by how none of these people know what happened up in that tower. They were here. They lived through the same 6 months. But they don't know. The gate opens for you. You walk through it, and for the first time in half a year, you're outside the castle walls. Free. Released. Done. The village spreads before you. It's mid-morning, market day. People buying and selling, children playing, normal life happening. You stand there, just beyond the gate, unable to process the sheer normalcy of it. How are these people just living? How are they conducting business and laughing and existing as if the world is a safe, comprehensible place? A child runs past you, chasing a dog. You flinch, hand going to your belt where a weapon should be but isn't. The child doesn't notice. The child is fine. There's no threat. But your body hasn't received that message. Your body is still in the tower, still on watch, still waiting for the attack. You start walking. No particular destination, just away. Away from the castle, away from the tower, away from the stone cylinder that consumed 6 months of your life and changed you into someone you don't recognize. The road leads south toward other villages, other manors, other places that might offer work to a damaged former guard with limited skills and visible trauma. Historians document the aftermath of medieval military service in impersonal terms. Discharge rates, injury statistics, reintegration patterns. They note that tower guards had high mortality rates. Roughly 40% died during or shortly after their posting from injury, infection, or suicide. Of those who survived, few returned to productive civilian life. Most drifted into poverty, begging, or crime. Some joined mercenary companies, seeking the only life they understood. Some simply disappeared from records, their fate unknown. You're now part of those statistics, one of the 60% who survived but will never be whole. You walk for hours, putting distance between yourself and the tower, but the tower comes with you. It's in your ruined shoulder, your chronic cough, your constant vigilance. It's in the nightmares you'll have tonight and tomorrow night and every night for the foreseeable future. You've left the physical tower, but the psychological tower goes everywhere you go. You stop at a stream to drink and catch sight of your reflection in the water. Startles you. The face looking back is gaunt, hollow-eyed, aged beyond its years. There's gray in your hair that wasn't there 6 months ago. Your eyes have a quality you've seen in veterans of real wars. A distance, a disconnect, like part of you is somewhere else. This is what the tower does. This is the price of prestigious military service. Night falls and you're still walking, unable to stop. Stopping means finding shelter, and shelter means enclosed spaces, and enclosed spaces trigger panic. You walk until exhaustion forces you to collapse under a tree, and even then you can't sleep properly. You wake every hour, checking your surroundings, making sure you're safe. Safe. What does that even mean anymore? The next village offers day labor. You can haul water, chop wood, do simple tasks that don't require lifting your right arm above your head. The pay is terrible, maybe 1/10 of what you earned as a guard, but it's something. You work for 3 days, sleep in a barn, eat when people offer food. This is your life now. This is what after looks like. You meet another former tower guard in a tavern a week later. You recognize him instantly, that same look, that same distance in his eyes. He's older, maybe 30, and he's been out for 2 years. You ask him if it gets better. No, he says simply. You learn to carry it, that's all. The tower doesn't let go. It has you forever. He buys you a drink with money he probably can't spare, and you sit in companionable silence. Two men who've been to the same hell and survived but didn't escape. There's comfort in that, somehow. You're not alone in your damage. There are others like you, scattered across the kingdom, all carrying towers in their heads. You ask him what he does now. This, he gestures vaguely. Odd jobs, moving around, can't stay anywhere too long. People notice something's wrong. They don't understand, can't understand, and after a while their pity turns to annoyance. So I move. This will be your life, you realize. Drifting, working when you can, moving before people start asking too many questions. Never connecting, never settling, never healing because healing requires stability and support and understanding, none of which are available to former tower guards in medieval England. The average life expectancy for a tower guard after discharge was roughly 10 years, according to what records exist. Many died from complications of injuries sustained during service. Some died from poverty and exposure. Some from violence, damaged men getting into fights they couldn't win. Some from their own hands, unable to carry the weight anymore. Very few lived to old age. Very few found peace. You're statistically likely to be dead before you're 35. The tower has already taken 6 months of your life. It will continue taking until there's nothing left to take. This is the truth they don't tell you when they offer the prestigious position of tower guard. This is the price they don't mention. But you're alive today. That counts for something. Maybe tomorrow you'll be alive too. And the day after. You take it one day at a time because that's all you can manage. The future is incomprehensible. The past is unbearable. There's only now, only today, only this moment. You shoulder your small sack of belongings and continue walking. South toward nothing in particular. Away from the tower that you can still see on the horizon behind you. Away from the stones that held you, the stairs that broke you, the cold that invaded you. Away from the memories that will never leave. The tower is still there, of course. It will be there for centuries, long after you're dead. Other guards will climb those stairs, stand those watches, break in the same ways you broke. The cycle continues. The tower always needs guards, and desperate men always need work, and the system perpetuates itself generation after generation. You wouldn't last a day in a medieval castle guard tower. That's what someone might say, imagining themselves in your position. But you did last. You lasted 182 days. You survived every watch, every storm, every hour of boredom and terror and suffering. You climbed those stairs roughly 1,500 times. You made it, and now you have to figure out how to survive the rest of your life carrying what those 6 months did to you. The tower is behind you. The damage is permanent. The future is uncertain. But you're walking, you're breathing, you're continuing. For now, that's enough. For now, that has to be enough. The road stretches ahead, gray and endless under a February sky. You walk it slowly, your tower-damaged knees protesting every step, your scarred shoulder aching in the cold. Behind you, smoke rises from the castle keep. Ahead, nothing but distance and the hope that maybe, eventually, the memories will fade from sharp to dull. They won't, of course, but hope is all you have left. So you walk toward it, one painful step at a time, carrying your tower with you. Always carrying your tower. Forever carrying your tower. The world continues around you. Merchants traveling, farmers working, life happening. And you continue through it, separate but present, damaged but surviving. This is what after looks like. This is the rest of your life. The tower is done with you, but you're not done with the tower. You never will be. And somewhere behind you, new guards are climbing those same 47 steps, beginning their own 6 months of slow destruction. The cycle continues. The tower stands. The guards break. Always. The twilight deepens now, settling soft over these difficult truths we've explored together. You've walked alongside this guard through cold stones and colder realities, through boredom that ached and violence that scarred, through hunger and isolation and the slow grinding down of a human spirit. Medieval castle guard duty wasn't glory or honor. It was survival, barely, at tremendous cost. These towers still stand across Europe, silent witnesses to countless forgotten suffering. The stones remember, even if history doesn't record, the men who stood those watches, who climbed those stairs, who paid with their bodies and minds for a position society called prestigious but treated as expendable. Let their story settle gently now as you drift toward your own rest. Let the weight of historical truth fade into the softness of sleep, knowing that you're safe, warm, comfortable in ways those medieval guards could never imagine. Your tower is metaphorical, not stone. Your watches are hours at work, not frozen vigils. You have futures they never knew. Sleep well, knowing their struggle is over, yours is different, and tomorrow holds possibilities they never had. The medieval tower stands empty now, its guards long gone to whatever rest they finally found. You can let them rest too. Let yourself rest too.